Okay, we would like to welcome you to the July 21st, 2020 Lexington 1 School Board meeting. We have just concluded executive session, and we welcome all of you coming out on this hot, odd night. And we appreciate everybody complying with the Town of Lexington's ordinance to wear the mask, and we are thankful that you guys are willing to social distance and work with us on that. So we appreciate all of you coming out. It's going to be an interesting night. I think we have some people in the overflow room, do we? We don't have the overflow room open tonight. Oh, they're going to be out in the cars? Actually 3 at 6, so we have 9 people who are going to speak when the first time. Okay. So we're going to kind of work, and people are going to kind of move in and out so that this room, we can constantly maintain our 6 feet of social distancing. So I think Mary Beth's already explained that to you, but I appreciate everybody working with us on that. At this time, do I hear a motion to conclude executive session and begin in general session?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. I would like to call our meeting to order. It is 6:32, and I call to order the general session of the July 21st, 2020 board meeting. This is an exception to our standard start time of 7 o'clock p.m., and this was communicated in a public notice. We are meeting tonight in compliance with the governor's orders, CDC recommendations, and the Town of Lexington ordinance. The auditorium has been thoroughly cleaned and sanitized before the meeting and will be after the meeting as well. District staff will also sanitize the microphone before and after staff presentations or individuals speaking during citizens' participation. All board members, employees, and other individuals in attendance are encouraged to social distance and wear a face mask covering at all times. There is limited seating to maintain social distancing tonight. Once that seating is filled, attendees will be asked to step out of this room, and Ms. Hill and her staff will work with you on how we will rotate people in and out. Sorry about that. The public is encouraged to watch this meeting on our YouTube channel. After the meeting, the district will follow its previously established process by posting a video of the meeting to the district's YouTube channel, Lex One video site, and our own website. I would like to notify you that we are in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, and that we have notified the media of the date, time, and place of this meeting. We would also like to let you know that the district tapes the meeting for accuracy in preparing these minutes. At this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Anne-Marie Green, who will lead us in an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Green?
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Please join me in prayer if you choose. Lord, thank you for your goodness to us. We ask for your hand to be on all of us tonight and in the days and weeks ahead as we work together to reopen our schools. Protect our community, our staff, and our students. Give us wisdom to meet the demands of a situation that is new for all of us. Help us all to commit daily to keeping each other safe. Thank you for the blessing of being a part of the Lexington One family. Amen. Please stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now to 5.0, which is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I would ask from action item 9.1 to follow report item 10.3.
Okay.
Item 9.1 is a 2020-2021 calendar change and is tied to the Stronger Together presentation that we will receive in section 10.
Okay. So we have a motion just to move an item on the agenda. We're not actually amending the agenda with the change. We're just moving an item. Do I have a second to the motion that Ms. Green has just made? She has amended the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. Let's take a vote on that. All in favor of making the change, please say aye.
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 Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay. Now do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the change?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda with the just passed amendment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments before we vote on the amended agenda?
I have a question. We got an email that said the ratification for the online academy would be included on the agenda. I'm just wondering why it wasn't there.
And Ms. Garris, I had submitted that request, and then after a conversation with Ms. Hill, I was made aware of the fact that there's actually already a policy in our policies that has taken care of the creation of an online academy within Lexington School District 1. So it's not necessary for that to be a part of our agenda.
Okay, do you know what policy that is?
Yes, it's policy IJNDAA, distance education / virtual high school.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
thank you. And any other questions or comments, Board? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on the amended agenda. All in favor of the agenda as amended, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. Okay. Let's see, we are now going to go to 6.0, which is approval of our June 2nd, 2020, our June 8th, 2020, and our June 23rd, 2020 board meeting minutes. Board members, you have received the minutes of June 2nd, June 8th, and June 23rd, 2020. Other than corrections that have already been received and made, are there any other corrections? Hearing none, we will accept the minutes as presented, and I want to thank Ms. Halliday. She's flying solo tonight. She's over there by herself. She's new to this position, and she did a great job with those, so thank you, Tracy. Board members, we're now to 7.0, which is reports and action items from executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve 13 certified recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year?
Madam Chair, I move the board accept Dr. Little's senior leadership team's recommendation for 13 certified positions for the 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any questions or comments? I'd like to ask a question wherever Mr. Stacy is. I know we're approving 13 tonight. How many do you have left to fill? 26. Okay. And are all of, do we have any recent ones, like people who have resigned because of the virus?
Since July 7th, we've had 10, 6 resignations, and 4 that we offered contracts to that they declined.
Mr. Stacy, if you use the microphone, it won't be on.
Oh, and I apologize.
Okay, so since July 7th, we've had 6 resignations and 4 declined contracts that we think are particularly related to COVID.
Okay.
The 6 resignations, Dr. Little suggested that we reach out to those teachers one more time and talk to them about the virtual academy. We did that yesterday. At least 4 of them have responded somewhat favorably. I'm gonna couch that. Some of their concerns is that one of our thoughts at the moment, because it changes almost daily, is that we would require teachers to come into a building to do the virtual learning. And part of that thinking is because of the collaboration that those teachers would have with each other. But we could social distance them. A lot of them have underlying health reasons for why they wouldn't want to come in. And we could social distance. We could put them like in our office. We go in our office, we close our door, and we communicate via phone or Zoom is how we have our staff meetings. So we could set that up in some of our buildings. And so some of them have thought that that might interest them, that we've encouraged all of them to go ahead and apply to be a virtual teacher through our employment process. And then we're working now through the numbers based on what our surveys have said as far as which students want 100% virtual. And we're going to go back through the schools and make some adjustments. So it's a work in progress, but as I said earlier, I think Dr. Little's conversation with teachers, the teacher talk the other day, was really helpful in that process. I think a lot of teachers had some concerns, and I think he alleviated a lot of those. Some still have some concerns, and we're going to work through them, but I think we're going to make it. It doesn't seem like it's totally not possible to make it through.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stacy. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Stacy, Board?
The 26 open positions, is that on par compared to previous years this close?
It's not too far off, to be honest with you, because we've had some situations in the past. I mean, like last year, the 1st of July, we were like 60. So it's not too far off. But there's not a huge pool out there, and so we're going to start doing some more virtual fairs. We've actually had some people reach out, though, for our virtual academy that hadn't reached out to us before, and so we're asking them to apply so that we may end up hiring some external candidates just for the virtual academy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stacy. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 13 certified recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and it is unanimous, and we definitely welcome those 13 teachers. And do I hear a motion to approve 2 administrative recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year?
Madam Chair, move the board accept the 2 administrative recommendations by Dr. Little and the senior leadership team for the 2020-2021 academic school year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any comments or questions, board? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the 2 administrative positions for the 2020-2021 school year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and it is unanimous. So thank you for that. We are now going to 8.0, which is citizens' participation. And I am going to read some guidelines, and these are for our audience tonight. We're going to start out, I think we have 5 people speaking, and then we'll bring in the others. So the Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees provides a time for citizens' participation at each regular board meeting. Tonight, we have more speakers than our social distance guidelines can hold in this building. We have asked several individuals to wait outside until their time. We will contact you as your time to speak nears, and then you may enter the building and come on into the auditorium. There are a few guidelines, of course. First, in order to speak, you must be a parent or a legal guardian of a student in Lexington County School District 1 or a resident and taxpayer of the district. Second, you will have 3 minutes. Third, you may comment on an agenda item, school operations, programs, policies, or other matters of concern. However, you may not speak about specific individuals, whether students or staff. There are other ways to bring situations like that to the board's attention. We want to give everyone who came tonight a chance to speak and the opportunity to speak. For that reason, board members will not reply to your remarks. And if someone makes the point or points you came to make before you, if you could just state that you agree with the previous speakers and not restate every point, that will also help us move along. We also ask you not to clap or make any comments, either while an individual is speaking or after a speaker finishes, as that also slows down the process considerably. If you wanted to speak tonight, we ask that you fill out a card, that you give us your name and address for our records. And I think so far, everyone that wants to speak in here has given Ms. Hill a card. Am I correct? Is there anyone else in here that wanted to speak that didn't fill out a card? Okay, great. Well, we've already covered all that. Okay, so let's get going because we like to hear from you guys.
Madam Chair, could I interject something here before we get these folks up to speak? I wanted everyone to be aware that the school board does not vote on our reentry plan. And Dr. Little, if I could ask you to go over that policy, there's a board policy that gives the superintendent the authority to make that decision. And I know that I have been contacted like you would not believe. My phone is blown up, text, phone calls, emails, Facebook. I've heard from a lot of our teachers, a lot of our parents. I've heard from students, and I'm sure that everyone here has. And don't think that this has not weighed heavy on our minds, I mean, beyond your belief. But Dr. Little, if you could just lend to that.
Yes, sir. I was going to talk about that during the superintendent's update, if that's okay, but it's just kind of the pleasure of the board. So really, from our end, and as we've thought about how best to approach it, the board provides the superintendent authority over issues of instruction and operations and those types of things. And so because of that, that's why we're presenting this tonight. But the vote we are providing is to the calendar, and the calendar is going to be an integral part of the plan. So that's really, in the 30,000-foot view, is what the issue is.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, I'm going to call first Mr. Anthony, is it Bertone? Bertone. He's going to discuss the reopening of the school, and he lives at 104 Duval Court, Lexington, and at 29072. So thank you, Mr. Bertone.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, before I get started, I'd just like to inform the board that I am a teacher of 45 years and was a Board of Education member for 12 years in another state. What I am interested in %, and a high of 33.6%. And I don't even want to comment on the death rate that's going on. This is serious because this should be well below 10% before this is even considered. That should be like for 14 days. And that's according to the CZD. So I don't know how we could open up school with this kind of numbers. I brought with me today an article that appeared, which I'll give the board, in the state paper, July 13th. The headline is, "Complications that are deadly to kids reported in South Carolina." And this deals with COVID, okay? Also, I have some other information I have here that's related to several other articles involving it. This is one that's from CNN, and it has task force reports, says 18 states, corona, red zone, should roll back reopening. And we are in a corona red zone. That is something you really need to consider here. I also have a number of questions, and I realize you can't answer these tonight, but I would like to know when I can get answers to these, okay? And who will answer them for me? I'll read them off rather quickly because I only know I have 3 minutes, and then I'll hand them to you. How are we going to handle students who arrive early for school? Will students report directly to the classrooms upon arrival in school? This is a serious problem because when I was a teacher in this district, kids were arriving at 6:30 in the morning, sometimes 6 o'clock. How is this going to be handled? Okay? Will parents be allowed in the building? Anyone we introduce into that building is going to create a possibility of infection. We need to control every environmental aspect of that building in order to ensure that students don't get infected and bring home infection to their parents and their grandparents. Okay? How are we going to handle students who refuse to comply with wearing a mask? That's going to be another problem. How are we going to handle students who have IEPs or 504s prohibiting mask use? Because it is my understanding, and some parents are going back to the school districts and actually requesting meetings to change and amend 504s. Who's going to clean the building? I've heard that from Dr. Little. But I want to know if his staff is going to clean the building, who's going to certify it's clean? If we get an outside contractor to come in, that should be part of that each and every day. That we need to get that certified. We need to know the building is clean. Okay. How often do you have, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. I have a number of things here which I would like to. Yes. The only other thing that I'd like to say, and I realize this is over 3 minutes, but it's very, very important. If teachers contact COVID or come in contact with somebody who does have a COVID, are they going to be guaranteed their full salary while they're out? Are they going to be guaranteed not to lose sick days? Or is it going to be treated as a comp case, which is a disaster? Because I had a comp case in this district, and it was a disaster. So I'm very concerned about that for our staff. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the board's time on this. And I know you have a very difficult job ahead of you. And I know Dr. Little has a very difficult job ahead of him.
If you want to stay and hear the presentation, you can do that.
No, I think other people want to get in here.
You can stay and hear the presentation if you want to.
No, I think there's other people who want to come in. I don't want to take away from your time. Okay?
But it's on YouTube right now too if you want to.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. minute. We'd now like to welcome Shannon Sharp. She's going to discuss the reopening of schools. She lives at 741 Hallman Wagman Road in Leesville, and she is a child at Gilbert High School. So, Ms. Sharp? Yeah, go ahead, they're ready.
First of all, I'd just like to thank you for allowing us to come and to speak. There's a lot of stuff I would like to discuss, but due to the time restraints, I'm just going to advocate for my particular child. And I'm aware that everybody's situation is very different, and I respect that. To begin with, the facts are very confusing, I think, to us as parents and just as a community as whole. We see numbers come out one day, and then by the time you wake up in the morning, their numbers have changed or someone's saying that they're not correct. So I think it's hard for anybody to make a decision based off of ever-changing information. And I agree that, you know, as he said, that you're all in a position that's very difficult right now because you have 28,000 plus students and all their parents have a different opinion. So I respect you for what you are trying to do. I personally filled out every survey that was sent to me, including one asking how I wanted my child to go back to school. I didn't agree with the two options that I was given because I want 5-day face-to-face. I may be in a minority when I say that. I may be in the majority. I'm not sure. But that is what I would prefer for my child. Sorry if I get emotional. This has been a whirlwind for my family. I understand that this is not a cookie-cutter decision. It's not a one-size-fits-all. But I think that parents should be given that option of that face-to-face or that virtual based on the needs of their personal situations and their children. This is why I get emotional. As a parent of a rising senior, there are so many concerns that have already affected my family. The academic shortfalls that my child is worried she's going to face. She is college-bound, scholarship-bound. She's already lost some of those scholarships by her sport being deleted this year, so she will not get those sport-based scholarships. We worry about the socialization issues that she has faced, which have then become emotional issues, which have then played into her mental health issues, which have then affected our entire family and the dynamic of our household. It's really a domino effect, if you will. I'm going to go over on my time too, and I apologize, I'm sorry. Everyone has shortcomings in life and disappointments, and I completely understand that, but what I can't fathom is being 17 years old and my entire senior year being one big disappointment. My daughter looked me in my face and said, if they do not open school up, it will be as if this year of my life never existed. They look forward to fall sport recognition night, classroom ceremonies, Friday night lights on the football field, prom, homecoming, school pageants, graduation, senior trips, etc. That list goes on forever. And to fathom that she may miss every single one of them is a hard pill to swallow. These are milestones and memories that they'll never get the opportunity to have again. Everyone wants normalcy for our children, but I feel like a lot of these issues have not been addressed, and they have been submitted. I've gotten no response for them. I believe in the public school education system. I used to work in it myself at Gilbert Primary School and in Orangeburg School District 5 for 17 years. I'm no longer in the school system, but I believe just like every other nurse, healthcare worker, firefighter, EMT, paramedic, grocery store clerk, gas station clerk, teachers are essential. They were trained and hired to do a job, and unfortunately that is 5-day face-to-face instruction. My child is a hands-on learner. She does not do well virtually. She made it through the end of the year, but it was a struggle, especially with 2 essential working parents in the home. Even at 16 years old, she was old enough to be left alone, but we were not there to guide her and to make sure she was doing those expectations.
Ms. Sharp, you have exceeded your time. Can you just kind of summarize your final points, and because the other
Yes.
people want to speak tonight too?
I do believe that at this point, I would like to ask that parents be given that 5-day face-to-face option. I would like to see it there and to see Statistically, where we are, I believe that our class sizes would actually decrease because a lot of parents may choose the 100% virtual, and that may help some of the issue on its own. So I would ask that that be put into consideration for the parents.
Okay,
Thank you
Ms.
for your
Sharp.
time.
Thank you.
And Dr. Little, would it be okay, can we have somebody call Ms. Sharp in the
Yes,
next
ma'am.
couple of days? Okay, we'll expect a phone call from.
We'll do that for anybody who speaks, just
Okay,
as an
great.
aside. We'll make sure everybody's contacted.
Okay.
We'll follow
Thank
up.
you, Ms. Sharp. Okay, let me put my glasses back on. Are we sanitizing back there? I'd now like to call up Rebecca Hogan. She's going to speak on the impact of schools not reopening on kids and special needs and IEPs. She lives at 151 Hilly Rock Road in Lexington. She has a child at Beechwood Middle, and they were previously at Pleasant Hill. So, Ms. Hogan?
Thank you for giving us all the opportunity to speak this evening by opening the doors to folks in the community. To show up for a face-to-face forum shows that you care and you're really ready to listen to our concerns, so thank you for that. I also want to say that I appreciate the district's attempts to gather opinions of parents through surveys and emails and discussions. However, I'm a little disappointed in the lack of discussion and information regarding students with IEPs and special needs. These students, as well as the underprivileged, are suffering the most and should be top priority when making plans to reopen. My son is a rising sixth grader and has Fragile X syndrome, a genetic disorder that, among many things, causes a learning disability. Some reports indicate that many general education students have already lost a full year of mathematics skills due to the inefficiency of distance learning. Imagine the skill loss that a special needs student has suffered. Kids like mine need one-on-one instruction, and virtual is inadequate for many kids with disabilities. We as parents should not have to settle for this, and it's not right. And so I'm pleading with you to please do the right thing for these kids. The governor, the legislators, and the AAP are backing you to send these kids back to school full-time for face-to-face instruction. The support is there. As you all know, the CARES Act has provided our State Department of Education with $216 million for elementary and secondary schools as a resource for districts to use for services and tools to reopen safely. I would like to know how you all have used or plan to use this money to serve students with disabilities, as I'm fully aware that you can use the CARES Act money to serve this population. Teachers are extremely essential to our children's development, mental health, and overall well-being. As Governor McMaster said, nothing is more essential than giving each of our children an excellent education. It is in our Constitution, and we must do it. Additionally, the governor stated that parents should have the choice between full-time face-to-face learning and distance learning. With the district's current proposal, there is no choice being given to parents for month one. Please do the right thing and give us the choice that our children need. And I do realize that you guys have a lot to deal with on a lot of different levels. It's just this special needs community need educators. And I feel like I honestly feel like I'm not even up here for my son. Obviously I am. I'll do anything for him if it means, you know, sending them somewhere else that will service him. But it's more for, you know, the parents that I do know that won't speak up. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. We'll have someone touch base with you too, especially about that special needs piece. Okay. And y'all are welcome to stay. We're going to rotate at the end of this group, and if you want to stay and hear the other speakers, you don't have to dart out quite this second if you want to. Okay, we're now going to call on Dr. Jeffrey Travis, who is going to talk about 5-day face-to-face. He lives at 390 Yachting Road, and he has a child at New Providence Elementary. Dr. Travis?
Oh, that's fine. Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. And again, I'm here to support the 5-day face-to-face option. I think it's just very important for our children. We experienced the virtual side of this at the end of the last school year, and it was really difficult. It was difficult for our child and even our college-age kids. They just didn't do as well. They didn't do as well academically. They didn't do as well socially. And so we've had some experience with that. And I just think that in the county that we live in, that we should offer our parents the option. During the YouTube videos that we watched, it was stated over and over again how important it was that our number one priority was safety. Our number one priority is safety. I would beg to differ. I'd say your number one priority is education. And I know you take that seriously. I know all of you are very serious people and good at your jobs. But safety is not the number one priority. Educating our children is the number one priority. And we want you to do that safely. All parents want you to do that safely, of course. But we as parents have seen how our kids didn't do well for just a very short period of time. And we just want to be given the option of either virtual learning at home, if you're concerned about the risks, or face-to-face. We don't want a hybrid model. We weren't given that choice in the survey. There was no 5-day face-to-face option. And so we don't feel like that, that survey completely represents everyone's feelings on this. And that's why we come tonight to say that we want a face-to-face option 5 days a week. The other options that exist for childcare during these times are probably not as safe as having our students in school. Daycares for teachers' kids or daycares for extended care probably are not going to socially distance our kids as well as our school does. 20% of people have already chosen the virtual 5-day arm of this, and so there's already some social distancing that's happened. Right now, we're only at 80% of the students that might show up. So I know there's difficulties, but I think the risks to our children and their health has been well outlined. I think the American Academy of Pediatrics has spoken on this. But I think it's a false equivalency. I think the risk of keeping our kids out of school is actually higher than the health risks. And I think that a lot of parents see that. They saw that during the last 3 months of the last school year. It just didn't go well. And I think just saying we're going to try harder or do better, I think we all know that it's just not the same. It's not equivalent, the two options. And we just want to be given the option. We just want to be given the option that we can bring our kids to school 5 days a week, face-to-face. I'm not real sure why that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Travis. Okay, we're now going to call on Ms. Charlotte Robertson. She's going to talk about the 5-day option face-to-face. She lives at 228 Harbor Vista Circle in Lexington, and she has a child at River Bluff. So, Ms. Robertson.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I agree with the last, everyone except the first, and not that I disagree with the first speaker, but I do wish for my upcoming rising senior that he's allowed to go face-to-face for 5 days. I just don't feel he's getting the education that he needs to prepare for college, and I don't really want to repeat everything everyone said, but I do fully agree that that's in the best interest, and if we could at least get the option to be able to send our kids 5 days, I think they would do much better and get a better education. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Robertson. Okay, that concludes that group. So I'm going to ask all those people that spoke, if you wouldn't mind heading out, and I apologize that we don't have.
And to the speakers, we are showing this on our YouTube channel live, so if you'd like to watch the presentation that we will be doing later, that may also provide you with some more information. Thank you very much.
Well, Ms. Hill, is there anyone else waiting to come in?
There is, but we're going to bring this in just 1 second.
Okay, okay.
We're trying to maintain social distance.
No, that's good, that's good. Now, did this group get to this getting ready to speak? Did you guys get to hear the guidelines? Do I need to repeat those? Okay. Okay, I'll repeat those when they come in.
There's going to be 2 situations where you have more than one.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Is that it?
Two people are not speaking.
Okay.
We should have had some music playing during musical chairs.
Okay. Is that everyone, Mary Beth, that's speaking for right now? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the guidelines again. The Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees provides a time for citizens' participation at each of our regular board meetings. Tonight, we have more speakers than our social distancing guidelines could hold in the building, and that's why we're rotating you guys in and out. There are a few guidelines to speaking, of course. First, in order to speak, you must be a parent or legal guardian of a student in Lexington County School District 1 or a resident and taxpayer of the district. Second, you will have 3 minutes. Third, you may comment on an agenda item, school operations, programs, policies, or other matters of concerns. However, you may not speak about specific individuals, whether students or staff. There are other ways to bring those situations to our attention. We want to give everyone who came tonight a chance to speak. For that reason, board members will not reply to your remarks. If someone makes the point or points you came to make before you, if you could just state that you agree with the previous speakers and not restate every point, that helps us too. We also ask that you not clap or make any comments, either while an individual is speaking or after a speaker finishes, as that slows down the process considerably. If you wanted to speak tonight, we ask that you fill out a card. Does everyone that wanted to speak tonight, were they given a card? Is there anybody left that wants to speak that did not get a card? Okay. We will begin. So we're going to continue. And this is a group, I think, so I'm going to call you all up at once. This group is speaking about athletics. I have Lamyron Jenkins, who will be speaking. This person lives at 112 Red Ash Lane in Lexington, and they have a child at River Bluff High School. And you can go ahead and head to the microphone. Let's see. They will be joined by Michelle Faust, who is not speaking. She is commenting, she's here about athletics, and she lives at 2 Sagefire Court in Irmo, and she has a child at River Bluff High School. We also have Walter Hutto, who is not speaking but will be joining the podium. He lives at 250 Glenkirk Lane and has a child at River Bluff High School. So if y'all want to go ahead and let's see, Mr. Jenkins is the speaker, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
First and foremost, thank you for the opportunity, the board, to have the citizens of Lexington be able to come and speak with you this evening. Thank you to Dr. Little and all of the governing bodies. We have a very brief comment. We will probably not take our 3 minutes here. But on behalf of the River Bluff Gator Nation Booster Club, and also for Kevin Fringer, of the president of the Lexington High School Booster Club, Mary Stargell, who's president of the White Knoll High Booster Club, and also Rob Shirley, who is the president of Gilbert High School Booster Club, and all of the governing bodies of the Booster Club for Pillion High School. We would like to express our full support and commitment to our athletic programs and to our district administration in these difficult times of pandemic. We also sincerely appreciate and affirm Dr. Little's support for doing whatever it takes to allow students the opportunity to participate in athletics, expressed in his remarks to the South Carolina High School League. It is our request to the Lexington County School District 1 Board to continue to allow our students to work out and compete in athletics unless they are counseled by the Office of the Governor or the South Carolina High School League. When students are engaged in athletics, it leads to improved mental and physical health, which helps them through difficult times like the ones that we're experiencing during this pandemic. We are very appreciative of how the commitment and the level of support of all of the coaching staff that they have followed all safety protocols and understand the difficulties that are associated with continuing to compete. So we are here today as a collective group of Booster Club members for all high schools, that we are pledging our full support both financially and in volunteer hours and in any way we can help them and our student athletes. We also understand the risks that are involved in playing sports and believe that parents and students should continue to consider the risk before signing a waiver to play. We want to thank the board and the administration for their commitment to athletics, and if there's any way that we can help, we're here to serve. We understand that the task that you have before you is extremely difficult, and we know that there are a lot of hard decisions that need to be made. We're in an excellent, excellent school district. We've done a tremendous job, and I know that our education and well-being of our students from athletics and academics is first priority. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Faust, and Mr. Hutto. And I also want to personally thank you for serving as volunteers. I think you're associated with the Booster Club at River Bluff, correct? Anytime somebody volunteers, we really appreciate you, so thank you for doing that.
Ms. Smith, can I just take a point of order to give Mr. Jenkins a little shout out for coordinating the first Gator Nation golf tournament, and they raised more than $5,500 for the foundation's Caring Hearts Fund, and he was the driver for that.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, that's great, yeah. Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Okay, now at this time, let me put my glasses back on again. I'm going to call on Rome Lindler, who is going to be speaking about the 5-day schedule. They live at, do you have a street address, Mr. Lindler? Catawba Trail. Okay, lives on Catawba Trail in Lexington and has a child at Lexington Middle School. So, Mr. Lindler?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, everybody, for having us. I wanted to talk about two distinct things that I don't know if the school district has taken into account. One is learning disabilities. And I'm talking about there is a population right now that has disabilities that we don't know about. Has anybody in this school district looked to see if there are students that have a learning disability that cannot learn online? Because everybody was thrown into online. Nobody, right here, the definition of a learning disability is a condition giving rise to difficulties in acquiring knowledge and skills to the level expected of those at the same age, especially when not associated, being physically handicapped or emotionally handicapped. By the Department of Health, a significantly reduced ability to understand new and complex information. Basically, we got a population that has never been tested to see if they can learn by virtual learning. Has that testing gone, has it been done, and is it going to be done with students to determine if they have a learning disability where they can't learn in virtual environment? Public Law 94-142 was written for handicap accessibility, but in 1990 it was changed to be all disabilities. And the 6 pillars of learning disabilities are IEPs, appropriate public education, which right now we don't have appropriate education. Hybrid model is not appropriate education. Least restrictive environment, we don't have least resistant environment. Appropriate evaluation, kids haven't been evaluated, and parent and teacher participation. All these people in here were not given the choice of a 5-day option on the survey, which was a total failure. The next thing I want to talk about is true risk assessment, okay? I don't think there's been a true risk assessment done. One of the safest places for these kids to be is in a classroom. It's safer than being at home. Right now, I've got the CDC guidelines from June 24, 2019, which reflects all the data from the CDC of how kids were killed, and excuse that for being, but they passed away. There were total of, let's see right here, almost 1,500 students that were killed just in motor vehicle accidents. When you're not in school, your chances are going up. If you do a true risk assessment, what are all the other things that can happen to kids while they are at home and not in school for those 3 days? Okay? How many of them are being abused? How many of them are being self-inflicted, suicide, accidental poisonings? Okay? I've heard nobody talk about the risk of kids being at home for those 3 days and not being in school. The chances of them dying because of COVID in a classroom is less than any of these other lists or things that could happen to them out here. And I don't think it's been taken into consideration. My son changed emotionally. We had to take him to the doctor. He basically lost all his friends at school, lost all his friends at church, ball field, all these kind of things. And he literally, we had to take him to a dermatologist because he was scratching and clawing himself because he wasn't in school. So when you talk about true risk assessment, are the kids better in school 5 days a week than being at home 3 additional days? Because these numbers are going to do nothing but go up, because kids have more chances to drink poison, bicycle accidents, car accidents, and different sexual predators. Everybody's talking about trafficking.
Okay.
And nobody has taken those risks into
Mr. Lindler, your
whether
time's
they've come
up.
up.
I'm really sorry. We have some other people that want to speak. I'm really
Thank you.
sorry. Thank you. We'll have someone touch base with you in the next couple of days. You can stay if you want to hear the other comments. I don't know, is there anyone else left to come in out there? Yeah, okay. We're now going to call, okay. We're now going to call on Kelly Benedict. She's going to discuss the survey. She lives at 268 Creek Branch Drive in Lexington, and she has a child at River Bluff. Ms. Benedict?
That's all right. Oh, it's fine. Well, thanks for giving us a forum to be able to speak. I'm going to just speak to, and I know your rules are, don't repeat what everybody else is saying, but I'm pretty sure that what I have to say just compounds what everyone else has just said. It's a common theme. I think it's important to look at. So I just jotted something down quick. I speak on behalf of the hundreds of parents that have expressed concerns that not having a 5-day option for learning put their child at a greater risk for mental health and academic decline. And that risk was way more dangerous than the symptoms of the COVID for the group under 18. I would like to request that the board direct the administration to provide this as an option. I'd also like to request a survey be sent out, an actual survey. I don't feel like, none of us really feel like the survey that came out in the beginning was worth much. I think the second one was better, but it still didn't give us all the options that we needed. We're missing one very important one, as you can hear by every single person that has spoken. We were not given that option, and we would like for you to publish the results of the survey so that we are all on the same page and it's not hidden in where we can't see it. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Please think about the 5-day. Everybody needs it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Benedict. Okay, we're now going to call on Erica Lynn Barnes. She's going to be talking about face-to-face learning and athletics. She lives at 536 Plymouth Pass Drive, and she's a River Bluff parent. Ms. Barnes?
Hey, thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to speak. We do appreciate your jobs and how difficult these decisions are. I work in a field where I know how difficult it is to please everybody. So I know that's impossible, but along with most of the people here, I am looking for a 5-day face-to-face option. My child is a rising junior. This is a critical year for her. Scholarships come into play. She's taken a very difficult course load. And with the virtual learning that we had in the spring, our kids are not staying at home and doing what they need to do. I mean, they're out living their best lives. So I do feel like they're safer in school. I think structure is important. I think socialization is crucial. I think mental health is, definitely people who don't have mental health issues, things are starting to come into play, as we've seen with close friends. We also have 2 athletes, and most of the parents that have athletes, they've been doing this their whole lives. I haven't come across any parent of an athlete who doesn't want their kid to participate in sports. I, along with most people I know, would sign a waiver. We understand the risks, but again, I feel like if they're not in school, they're not going to be at home social distancing from everybody else. They're still going to be exposed to their grandparents. A lot of kids don't have what it takes to just stay home in that structure to work a regular school day and do what they need to do at home, no matter how good of a student they are. The last quarter, my daughter got almost a full-time job, and she took 4 AP classes, and she passed all of them, but she wasn't doing schoolwork 6, 7 hours a day. You know, I just want to, I hate to see athletics taken away from athletes of scholarships. A lot of people that were juniors and seniors this past year, they broke records. They never even got to showcase some of their records. And it's life-changing for some of these kids. A lot of these kids don't have, I mean, an athletic scholarship is their way to go to college. So, you know, we're facing ACTs, SATs. I just want some normalcy for our kids in 5 days back in the classroom. I feel like if you're going 2 days, there's not minimalizing risk. I mean, as much as if they were, you know, I feel like if they were at home, they're at more risk. You know, I know we're looking at the death to positive cases ratio. That's significantly going down. I track it every day. Before we were at 4%, and we're at 1.6% of the death to the positive cases ratio. So, and it's not impacting our children as much as some other general populations or other demographics. So, I mean, I hate it for anybody to obviously perish due to this disease, but I'm also in an industry where I'm working with a lot of people that are positive right now, and a lot of them just have colds, and then we have other people that are really suffering. So I'm not trying to take away from anybody's decision. I feel like you're scared of it, then you should, by all means, keep your child home. But if for those of us who want our kids to be in school, give us the opportunity to put them in school.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Okay. And last but not least is Michael Barnes. So you're just dittoing her? Okay. So we'll put y'all together. So the, okay. Anyone else want to speak to the board before we move on from citizens' participation? Okay. Let me finish filling this out. Hold on, just to make sure when we look at these later, we'll know that these are together. Okay. Okay, if there's anybody else in the lobby that wants to come in, we do have some open chairs. Mr. Caldwell, is there anybody else out there that wants to come in?
Sure. Anybody else want to come in?
Anybody that is? It's just our staff now.
Okay. We are now going to go to 10.0, which is a superintendent's update. As you know, we did modify the agenda. We're going to vote on the calendar after we have the presentations tonight. So in case you just came in and you're wondering why we're not voting, we're going to move it till after the report. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Little. Board, this is for information only, and this is regarding his update. So take it away, Dr. Little.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, I just wanted to add, I think I put in your trail mix this week, the two Together Talks that we did last week. We just released our latest Together Talk today. We subtitled that a mask chat, and we will be doing other smaller Together Talks. We believe that's really the intent of as we communicate, special ed and some others that we're going to work on, and we'll be releasing some of that information just as soon as we get it. It takes a little bit to figure out, and then we'll be sending that along. But we do have a pretty significant presentation tonight, and I wanted to make sure that Natalie or Dr. Smith and Ms. Gaskins have an opportunity to do that, because especially considering citizens' participation tonight, I believe this will be the topic that people are interested in hearing about. So I'm going to turn it over. I believe Mary Gaskins is going to be first on the list today, and she's going to talk about, she's going to really approach our process from this 30,000-foot view. And then Dr. Smith is going to really hone in on the plan very specifically. Okay.
Let's see. There we go. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Little, I appreciate the opportunity to share tonight about the many smart and committed Lexington One educators who have been engaged in the process of reimagining school, all while the latest information and research changes almost daily. So many questions need answering, questions like ones we have never had to grapple with before. As many Lexington One educators and families come together to explore complex problems, it is our goal to start school in both a safe and meaningful way. And in this work, we want to stay true to our mission to cultivate a caring community where all learners are extraordinary communicators, collaborators, creators, and critical thinkers. The group that is coordinating the reentry work is the Reentry Task Force. The main goal of the task force is to focus on the big picture of reentry planning and create coherence across divisions and schools. In order to accomplish this, the task force has regular check-ins twice a week. During the check-ins, we discuss the latest research from other districts, states, and agencies, as well as the many reentry tasks at hand. We determine how the tasks will be distributed, with whom each division needs to collaborate in order to achieve the tasks, who will need to provide input, who will vet decisions, and how decisions and deliverables will be communicated. The Reentry Task Force is not a decision-making body. Instead, it determines what decisions need to be made and how solutions will be approached. There are 15 members total, representing each central services division. Fortunately, before the school closure associated with COVID-19, each division already had a principal advisory group established. This, along with other district advisory groups, has been very helpful as the task force and associated committees and working groups have solicited input from the various stakeholders. The Reentry Task Force realized early in the process that the first major task would be determining our schedule options for students. This framework was needed before any other decisions could be made, so the reentry scheduling drafting team was convened. After the school schedule models were shared at the June 23rd board meeting, working groups were established to make recommendations regarding the details that needed to be worked through based on scheduling implications. Groups organized quickly. Working groups have consulted local, state, and national guidance from the organizations and agencies that aligned with the questions they were trying to answer. We currently have 17 working groups with about 220 educators trying to answer all of the many questions at hand. So tonight, to share with you, I've divided these into kind of 4 categories. The first is health and safety, and I'm going to give you just a brief description of what each of the working groups is doing. Our athletics working group is monitoring our middle and high schools who re-engaged in preseason sports conditioning and workouts. They've also created an adjusted sports season proposal based on risk of COVID-19 exposure that has been shared around the state and presented to the South Carolina High School League Executive Committee. They are continuing to review guidance from the NFHS and the South Carolina High School League as we prepare for safe athletic practices and competitions. We also have a health requirements group. They have been using guidance from OSHA, CDC, DHEC, Accelerated Ed, and AAP to develop guidance for PPE needs for staff, symptom screening for students, and reducing exposure from and in the health room. The Safety Considerations Working Group is developing guidance on the arrival of students from the bus or car line into campus at each of our schools and the dismissal of students from the classroom back to the bus or car line at the end of the day. The School Discipline Working Group is studying the implications of detentions, suspensions, and expulsions on instructional time and recommending strategies to increase support for students and teachers to decrease the class time missed. They are also studying attendance guidelines, including how to safely sign students in and out of school, collect excuses, etc. The next series of working groups is working on our many questions around teaching and learning. The Fine Arts Working Group is developing comprehensive guidance for the visual and performing arts with the goal of protecting students and staff members while continuing to support our thriving arts program. They are working to ensure that students receive high-quality, guaranteed instructional experiences, whether delivery is face-to-face or virtual. The Grading Guidelines Group has analyzed our present system of grading and is developing modifications based on the new entry guidelines with the goal of developing consistent grading practices that are equitable for all students regardless of circumstances. The K-2 Distance Learning Group is working on creating consistent district-wide agreements and professional learning for teachers related to virtual learning experiences for K-2 students. Specifically, I'm thinking about early learning needs and what that looks like and sounds like. The LTC, CTE, and Centers of Study Working Group is developing recommendations that would maintain and retain enrollment in the Advanced Centers of Study and CTC courses, providing flexibility in the opportunities available to students at the center, CTE, and LTC through various instructional formats. The Online Learning Academy has a huge lift right now. They are developing a framework for the academy, including staffing, the instructional model, digital content, predictable structures for students and staff, and logistical information regarding work location, device management, etc. We heard in the Lessons Learned report at the last board meeting the importance of teachers receiving professional learning around how to deliver both hybrid and virtual instruction. This next working group is really focusing on that. They are developing consistent structures, expectations, and supports for the virtual days in the hybrid model, as well as if we were to need to go to an all-virtual environment. They are also coordinating the development of professional learning opportunities for teachers and administrators. They are creating support modules for families and guardians regarding e-learning structures and the parent's role in a hybrid or virtual environment. The Social and Emotional Learning Working Group is designing a district-wide social and emotional learning framework. As part of the framework, they are defining a shared commitment, shared language, and consistent approaches and guidelines for social and emotional learning, including a universal check-in survey for students, parents, and staff. Support Services, which we've heard a good bit about tonight, is working to develop structures and supports for students served in special education, GT, with a 504, response to intervention, and ESOL, including scheduling, accommodations and modifications, curriculum and instruction, progress monitoring, and safety procedures. Leaders of these groups are going to be communicating these specific supports and structures directly with the students and families impacted by these programs. The next couple of working groups are working on staffing and evaluation. The Evaluation Planning Group considered preliminary flexibility from the State Department related to educator evaluation and developed a framework for support aligned to the state evaluation requirements. This framework specifically focuses on support for induction teachers in light of proposed instructional models and safety protocols, in addition to other support structures aligned to formative and summative evaluation. The Substitutes Working Group is developing a plan for utilizing substitutes as it relates to each of the proposed schedule models. Considering the varying responsibilities by level, elementary, middle, and high, they have reviewed previous daily expectations of substitutes and recommended revisions to those based on the scheduling models. They've also had town hall meetings where they've had substitutes who are returning really so they could share what they know about the proposed school schedules, the need for substitutes, and to answer any of their questions based on that information. And lastly, we have some working groups just working on the logistics of coming back to school. The first, very important, we've heard so much about, is the Child Care Partnerships and Support for Families and Staff Working Group. They are recommending child care options for district employees and also engaging the community to determine childcare resources for families. The online registration and schedule pickup group is responsible for creating a proposed timeline for schools to begin their online registration process with minimal contact to ensure the safety of all involved. They collaborated with representatives from all levels to account for building master schedules and individual student schedules to prepare for the survey results from parents with their choice of face-to-face instruction or virtual instruction. The technical scheduling group, which Natalie serves on, and I hear these calls all day next to my office. They are always busy. This working group is creating the logistical structures and processes for implementing the entry schedules into PowerSchool, including helping to create master schedules at schools and the steps for cohorting students, which is a lot of work behind the scenes. They work closely with the Lexington One Online Learning Academy, online registration, and LTC and Centers of Study working groups to support the wider mission of reentry work. And as I shared earlier, we have approximately 220 Lexington One employees participating in a working group, and many of these groups have solicited feedback from additional stakeholders. Working group members include secretaries, school records operators, parent educators, social workers, school counselors, school psychologists, nurses, teachers, instructional coaches, lead teachers, athletic coaches and trainers, transportation, assistant principals, principals, and central services leaders. In many cases, multiple positions and schools or divisions are represented on a working group. For example, transportation has participated in 3 of the working groups. Now that the groups have submitted recommendations to a member of the senior leadership team, which they did on July 9th, we are currently working through the recommendations to flesh out the details and be prepared to implement the plans at the start of school. We are having conversations across working groups to create coherence and streamline our processes. For example, this week Nicole Mitchell, who is facilitating the online registration group, joined a conversation from the technical scheduling group to work through some details. The work isn't done. We are now shifting to either getting input from additional stakeholders or getting started on the work. And most importantly, communicating answers to our stakeholders regarding the decisions that have been made. In addition to the work of the working groups, we have many tasks that are being accomplished outside of these committees. The Reentry Task Force is tracking those tasks and continuing to put systems and structures in place to enhance how we share information. Additional information about the actual recommendations of these working groups will be shared, but at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions about the process itself.
Board, do we have any questions for Ms. Gaskins?
Yes, is there a way we could get the names of the people on these committees?
Sure.
Okay, and you said, I think I heard you say transportation has 3 employees on the committee?
Well, the transportation department is represented on 3 different working groups.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's 3 people. I'd have to go back and look at the rosters.
Okay, 3 working groups. I didn't get the
That
rest of
was
that
kind
sentence.
of an example of how these aren't division-specific or level-specific working groups. Most of them are very collaborative in the number of kind of voices on the team.
Okay, do those include any bus drivers?
I don't think so, but I would have to go back and look at the rosters to confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to applaud the methodology, because again, when you have such a big, complex problem that's constant in evolution, breaking it down into smaller problems that teams can work kind of breaks the paralysis, which we all feel with something this big. So again, I applaud the methodology.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know if you would have this information, but the results of the survey from the substitutes, do we know how many of those will be returning compared to how many we had last year?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Stacy for that because I do not
Okay.
have that information.
We had town hall meetings.
I can't train you.
I just want to say, Kimberly Freeman sent me a text after the first one and said, I've never heard anybody say you can't talk loud enough. So that's the proof. I hear you. So we had town hall meetings, I want to say 2 weeks ago, and we did 3 of them back to back because you could only have like 100 people in a Zoom. And so those were returning subs. We have not started doing orientations for new subs coming on board, but we had in excess of about 300, maybe close to 400 people actually attend those meetings. Now, how many will actually apply to, or, you know, follow up with the things they have to do to be oriented to be a sub this year still remains to be seen, because there's some things they got to do follow up to that. That was an information meeting for them. And I thought it was well attended. They asked a lot of great questions, and I felt pretty good about it, to be honest with you. But specific numbers, we probably won't know until closer to the start of August, to the start of school, end of August.
Do y'all have the results of the survey? I read somewhere that there was a survey sent out to see which subs would be returning.
I don't have them personally. Kim Scott, the person that handles substitutes for our district, she would probably be able to get you some specific numbers if you needed them.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. First of all, I would like the definitions for terms that I think we use interchangeably, which are distance learning, virtual, and online academy. If you could define what those are so that I can at least try to start using them correctly.
I'm going to make sure Natalie corrects me if I'm wrong about this. So I want to first start with virtual learning versus the online learning academy. The Online Learning Academy is for families that have chosen that commitment to online learning for the full first semester. All of their learning will be delivered through the Online Academy teachers. Virtual learning will happen on those days when students aren't face-to-face in the hybrid model. Did I get it right?
Right, and I'll tell you, we're calling it e-learning, but I'll explain that.
Okay.
Natalie's going to go into more detail about that. And also, are you going to talk to them about K2 and distance learning?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to let her work through her presentation first, and then if we need more clarity at that point, we'll go back to it.
And I have one more quick little question for
Absolutely.
you, Ms. Gaskins. And you might not know the answer to this, but I've had a couple parents contact me that, particularly the students that have Chromebooks, there's an application on it called Backpack. And they think that they have seen their schedules for the coming year. But I've told them I don't think schedules have been set for the coming year, and so that information is incorrect. Is that, so what they're seeing is not actually what their schedules are for the year. Is there a way to shut that application down so that they're not?
It has been now.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That's,
It was a momentary glitch. I think it lasted for just a day or two.
okay.
That has been corrected, though, and lots of adjustments will be made between now and the time
And that's what I
schedules are
thought, because,
finalized.
y'all are in the early stages of the scheduling, and so that's good to know. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, we need a minute.
Okay. You need to wipe this off too.
I have to wipe it off. Catherine, y'all can just leave them with them. If they don't want them now, they might want them in a bit.
Good evening, Board, Madam Chair. I'm glad to be back with you again this evening to talk to you a little bit about our updates for the reentry plan and the schedules that we have been doing our Together Talks about. So my name is Natalie Osborne-Smith, and I work with Dr. Talley in Instruction, and I'm really glad to be with you. So like our previous plan that we talked about on June 23rd, we will be offering families two choices. One of these choices is called the transition model to a 5-day week. And this will be for students in pre-K through grade 12. The second option for families is the fully virtual Online Learning Academy. We're calling that the Lexington District 1 Online Learning Academy. Its short name, if you ever hear it from district folks, we call it LULA. You might hear me referred to it like that tonight. we're going to begin talking about the 5-day-a-week model, or the transition to a 5-day-a-week model. Let me say it that way. So from the start of our planning, we believe that in order to empower each child to design the future, we must approach reentry purposefully, strategically, and intentionally. Our goal has always been to maximize instructional time with students while keeping our children and staff safe. The plan I shared with you on June 23rd was a first draft. And as a former assistant principal at Meadow Glen Middle School, I learned that, like my students and teachers, that high-quality work requires feedback, additional research, and multiple revisions. So tonight, I'm going to talk to you about what we've done since we've gone through that process. So as I explained before, our goal was to maximize our face-to-face time with students. But in order to do that safely, we believe this requires 3 elements. First, face coverings should be worn both inside and outside of the classroom by both staff and students. While pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade students may not be required to wear face coverings, we are still very much strongly encouraging their use with our youngest, with our youngest learners, so they can develop the habit of wearing face coverings while in school. Students and staff will take multiple mask breaks to assist with mask fatigue. We will give you more information about that as we move forward in the planning. Second, we will maximize social distancing as much as possible. And third, we will practice regular hand sanitization. Each classroom will have hand sanitizer, and students will be expected to wash their hands with either hand sanitizer or soap and water each hour or before each class change. Again, we strongly believe that all three of these components are necessary if children and staff are going to be able to come to school face-to-face in the safest environment. So in addition to those safety protocols and practices, we believe that taking a measured approach to our reentry will allow us to enter into a 5-day model more quickly and safely. As such, we plan to implement a transition period approach during the first 4 weeks of school in order to practice our safety procedures as well as our hybrid learning processes. This transitional period is critical. We believe the transition approach allows children and staff to become well-versed in the safety and distance learning processes needed should we have to switch between a hybrid and face-to-face model at different points in the year. The transition approach that we are going to employ will be an AABB model for all students pre-K through 12th grade during the first 4 weeks. After the first 4 weeks of school, we will reevaluate the need for the hybrid approach to the schedule. The transition period approach, you will notice, has an AABB cohort, which was different than the plan that I presented to you in June. The AABB hybrid schedule allows one cohort of students to come on Monday and Tuesday. The second cohort of students will come on Wednesday and Thursday, and then all students will experience e-learning virtually on Friday. I'll explain what that looks like in just a little bit. In the hybrid model, students are going to experience a mix of face-to-face and e-learning experiences. So, in the transition period, elementary schools, like their counterparts, will use the cohorting approach. So this is a pretty big change from our June 23rd model that I presented to you. We believe the AABB hybrid model will provide a continuity of experience for our youngest learners, while also giving students access to quality face-to-face instruction and learning experiences. You will see that we still have a dedicated day for teacher planning, collaboration, and professional learning. I'll share more about this later in the session. For now, please note that that day moved from Wednesday to Friday. Elementary students in this model will have the learning and social experiences listed on the slide. This includes dedicated time for language arts, science, social studies, and math. You also will see that they have multiple math breaks and movement breaks, as well as recess. and dedicated time for social and emotional learning. Students will still eat their breakfast and lunch in the classroom, and they will still have access to high-quality related arts experiences in the transition period. Finally, please note that the start and stop time for elementary school remain the same in this model, which was 7:40 to 2 o'clock. So during the transition period, elementary students will also have access to special services and special programs. If a child receives services through an IEP, an ESOL plan, or an intervention plan, they will still have access to those supports in both a push-in and pull-out model, as I talked to you about last time. Students will also have access to gifted and talented services and instruction, and children in immersion will still have instruction in their target language. District coordinators, like Ms. Gaskin stated, are working with school teams to support the transition to the hybrid model in these specialized programs. These teams and district coordinators will be reaching out to families with specifics about their program later in the summer if they haven't done so already. So like in our previous plan, our middle school students during the transition period will attend school 2 face-to-face days, and then 3 we're calling them e-learning experience days. Please note the cohort days did change for middle school. Like elementary, cohort A is going to go on Monday and Tuesday, B will go on Wednesday and Thursday, and everyone will be virtual with e-learning on Friday. The start and stop time for middle schools is the same as it was. Middle school children will still have access to special services, intervention, accelerated classes, high school credit courses, and exploratories, as well as special programs like immersion. Like middle school, our high school students will be cohorted the same, with cohort A going on Monday and Tuesday, B on Wednesday and Thursday, and everyone virtual with e-learning on Friday. The start and stop time for high school remained the same as June 23rd as well. So I did have a little bit of an update on the coursework for high school that I wanted to share. Students will still take 6 to 8 credits over the course of the year. This will look like the 4x4 block that we discussed last time. They will also have access to LTC and Center of Studies courses. Here's the change though. For children at LTC and Centers of Study, the Transportation Office has graciously been working with us to provide midday busing to support those students who must return to their home school should they need specialized coursework. So that's a big win for families and for LTC. However, whenever possible, we're still encouraging LTC and our Center of Study students to remain in their special program school for the entire day if they can throughout that semester. To support a full day experience, LTC is working to provide core content classes. Lastly, students will still have access to their advanced courses like International Baccalaureate, Advanced Placement, and Dual Enrollment. So here's the part that a lot of families have been asking about, and it's what instruction looks like. So in a hybrid model, teaching and learning will be a mix. Some of these learning experiences will require on-campus class time. We're going to call this face-to-face. Face-to-face instruction during on-campus time will be focused on active learning engagements, where students are collaborating, communicating, brainstorming. Goodness gracious, sorry. Yeah, I know, I'm just on a roll and I don't want to quit. And creating in meaningful ways. Students will also practice using their technology tools to complete the work that I just described. On days when students are not in a face-to-face cohort, they will experience online learning time. In Lexington District 1, this is what we're calling e-learning. So Ms. Green, this is that definition. So e-learning in the hybrid model is largely made up of asynchronous instruction, which students can access at any time and in any order they choose. This means children will be working through instructional content on their device in a flexible way. Sometimes students may be on their own completing assignments connected to learning from a face-to-face day. At other times, they may be using technology tools to collaborate with their peers or teachers on e-learning days. Students will have access to their teachers on e-learning days, but these will be through pre-scheduled support sessions. So the key to this mix, and I want to make sure that this is clear, is that experiences for students on face-to-face must complement the work that they're doing on online e-learning days. Yes, ma'am.
So, kind of, if, say, you've got children in the A cohort, and they're doing South Carolina history, and then they go home, and they're continuing with an e-learning component of South Carolina history. But that teacher now is teaching the B group, correct?
Right. Yes.
So how do they access, when do they get a chance to talk to that teacher about South Carolina history, if that's just the example? I'm a little bit confused. So they would have a scheduled time that they could contact her. So technically, that it would be the same teacher that would do the A group, the B group, and do all the virtual learning. They would have the same, that group would have the same teacher all week teaching that South Carolina history.
Yes, but I do want to make clear. So schools are working on they're helping me to work on some structures for what that can look like for teachers, because we don't want both students and teachers to be overwhelmed with when and how, right?
It could be very overwhelming.
Right, we don't want that, we want it to be streamlined and the communication to go well between students and their teachers. So there are going to be different models, like in the high school, that might be a department that supports children at different times during the day. In middle school and elementary school, it's going to be more of a finite chunk of time out of their day that'll be tied to what that team of teachers decides is best for the grade. So it may be during a planning time, but the team of teachers might decide that it can be flexible other times. We do want to give teachers say in what that looks and sounds like, because they're the ones that have to manage the mix of the two. So we will be providing guidance on that to help with the flow.
Okay. In my mind, I just wonder if like a child got stuck.
Right.
And they don't have the scheduled time for 2 more hours, and then, they're just sitting there. I don't know, I'm trying to visualize what you're talking about.
So I think part of what's going to be really helpful is that we're going to be leveraging that social emotional learning time advocacy group to help kids come up with schedules and self-management kind of structures. That's absolutely critical, and that's part of the professional learning that we're providing to teachers, is helping them think through, how do I teach self-management skills for kids when they're there on face-to-face days, to set up a schedule, to figure out how I need to do my work, how to sign up for times for help sessions with my teachers, because I know I'm going to struggle in X content area. I need to make sure I get my time in with my teacher. Another option, again, I really think schools are going to end up landing on something that we've envisioned as department-type open sections or scheduled times for kids to just have access to a teacher. Because if you're certified in math, honestly, you can do math in 6th grade as well as you can do math in 8th grade typically. So again, that will be a structure of the school, but we'll be offering lots of guidance and samples of what that schedule can look like and be communicating that with families.
And hopefully, God forbid, the surge is making life so difficult, but knock on wood, and every vaccine doctor in the world is trying to come up with a vaccine. Hopefully, we're only talking 4 weeks.
4 weeks, right.
Yeah.
So again, this is a transition period, and then we'll reevaluate it.
Hopefully, we'll go to 5-day face-to-face if everything falls in place.
Fingers crossed. That's our hope. All right, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but I did want, because I know I have a lot of educator friends that are watching tonight, and kind of wanted to peek inside Natalie's brain on what instruction might look like. So some face-to-face things that kids might experience in class can include what we normally see in class: discussion protocols and one-to-one conferencing, literature circles, and independent practice. The normal things that we would see. What I can tell you is we're pushing high engagement, high activity, lots of interaction, because they are not necessarily going to get that same level of interaction that they would in e-learning. They still will get it, it just will look very differently. So in an online e-learning environment, some things that this might look like, and I do want to go into a little bit more detail on this part. So completing discussion board prompts based on a common text that they annotated together on a face-to-face day. Students might also view a pre-recorded video on content that they will then bring to a face-to-face meeting with a teacher and work in a small group. You might also see students completing independent work in an e-learning setting that they bring back on a face-to-face day to get feedback in a one-on-one conference. And also you might, and this was something that we're really exploring, is helping children leverage their peers for support. So having set, they call them campfire groups, where you have set small groups, peer small group help sessions where they help one another. So that's something we've been reading about and we're really interested in figuring out how that can look and providing feedback for that to families. To teachers.
Quick question.
Yes.
How different can the educational experience look from one school to another?
So,
with this model in mind.
We are providing very specific professional learning that's available to all teachers, that's talking to them about going from a learning experience, like a performance task, and how you backwards design it to instruction. So every teacher has their own style. So I don't want to tell you it's going to be lockstep the same from my classroom to Dr. Talley's classroom to Mary's classroom, right? But we are going to be all teaching the standards at the level they're expected to be taught. There will be common assessments across classrooms in a school, like in terms of a grade level. That's based on CUPs and on a series of documents that are coming out at the district level in terms of power standards and essential learning tasks. So there are going to be common things from school to school. There's still teacher style though. So I might show something like a pre-recorded video that I then take back and have a discussion circle around in my classroom, but maybe Mike decides to do the reading and the annotation in his classroom around the reading, and then takes care of a campfire circle discussion in an e-learning day. So that it's just going to depend on the style of the teacher and the needs of children. Content is based on standards, so that will be same from one school to the next. Any other questions?
And then I guess teachers will be preparing that remote learning on that 5th day, because I know most of our teachers have tenure with us, and so their lesson plans are pretty well baked, and all of us have had friends that are first or second year teachers, and just how much work it takes to draft and create those lesson plans, that you use year to year. So I guess they'll be taking content that they use in direct didactic teaching, harvesting that, and then through hopefully electronic tools that are easy mediums to move from PowerPoint to that or PDFs to that, creating instructional modules for e-learning. Does that ring true? And they're doing that on their Fridays, and they're working a couple weeks ahead?
Yes, and so I don't want people to think that what it takes is you're simply taking what you would normally do face-to-face and just flipping and putting it on like the learning management system Schoology, and all of a sudden kids can function. That's not really how it works. And that's the reason why the Friday virtual days for students is so absolutely critical for teachers, because they need to think, the performance task is X. I have 2 days face-to-face this next week with them and 3 days of e-learning. What is essential for me to do with them face-to-face in terms of skill and practice that they can then take to their online days to get them ready for the performance task? They've never had to plan like that before. So that's why they've got to have these really dedicated, uninterrupted collaboration days built into the schedule so that they can get, they're already fantastic, right? We are Lexington 1. They're A+ teachers. But we also recognize we all can grow and improve and get better. So they need that time to do that.
So as a follow-up to that, this is Jada.
Yeah.
Hey,
Just trying
Natalie.
to follow.
How are we going to hold these kids accountable? Say my son goes to school on Monday and Tuesday, you know, doesn't come back until the following Monday. Say he decides, I'm closing my laptop, I'm checking out. That will make it more difficult for the teacher come Monday when he returns face-to-face. Are we taking attendance? Are they going to be required at a certain time to show up? How does that work?
So there is a group working specifically on attendance practices, so I don't want to communicate something incorrectly there. I can tell you what I would do as a teacher, so I will give you that. If I had a child, or as an administrator at Meadow Glen Middle School, if a teacher came to me and said, Natalie's not coming, she's not engaging in the work, I assigned this task, I haven't received it, can you help me? I would be helping the teacher contact parents and contact students through either the use of their advocacy teacher to check in to find out what's wrong with them, through a counselor to check in, through their special needs teacher if they have a special needs teacher. Children are going to be wrapped in services and support, even on e-learning days. The key is the collaboration among teachers. Again, another reason why we need those Fridays is because teachers need time with other teachers and with administrators to check in about what you're saying. Natalie's not engaging. I haven't seen her in a day and a half, and I've emailed and reached out and she hasn't, submitted something important. Then we can start backtracking and really working on it. Teachers are really good at that, guys. They've always done that in instruction. That is not something new that in the spring. They are constantly checking in with children, and the advocacy periods, I think, are really going to be leveraged to support that. Great question, though. Anything else?
I just want to add that I know that this has been painstaking and that for every decision that's made, there's a ripple effect. That one decision might impact 10 other things that then have to be reworked. So my hat's off to all of you for what you've done and to try and get us to where we need to be.
Thank you. Well, I will tell you, it's been a team, it's a labor of love, and hundreds of people have been working on this task. So I'm saying a lot of things, but it isn't Natalie's, like the schedule and instruction is just, has been a huge task that we're worked on, and lots of people have been involved. But thank you. We appreciate your support.
Natalie, Dr. Smith, before we move on, can I just ask on the schedule for the middle school and high school, those students that eat breakfast at school, will that occur during their first period class? Will they have a place to go before that first period to eat?
So you're talking about breakfast?
Breakfast, yes.
So they're supposed to be eating in their classrooms. My understanding would be that that would be first period, but then I'm looking, Jeff, first period?
It's going to be grab and go.
Okay.
Meals are going to be grab and go, so they'll be able to grab a bag and take it first period or eat before in a common area or somewhere.
Okay.
So schools are working on spots, though, before school where they're keeping students socially distanced and can, if they need to eat before they go to class, they'll have that option.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, let me get through all of the things.
And then families with multiple kids, I guess you'll try to align the AAs with the AAs?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the cohorting part that the technical, my glasses are really fogging up. So that's the technical part that the technical scheduling group is really working to help schools do. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit in terms of the help we need from families, because it's very hard to do without all the information. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. When a student is home on e-learning days, including virtual Fridays, he or she can still have those check-ins. So we've been talking about that. The part that I really want to make sure that I emphasize here, since I've kind of discussed the other details with you before, is that formalizing those set office hours is very helpful to both students and teachers. It provides predictability for students and families, and it helps teachers to manage that communication and support of children when they're not on campus. We can't expect teachers to have live students and have virtual students kind of interacting with them at the same time. So they have to have those scheduled check-in times for children to kind of plug in with them. All right, so virtual Fridays. As I stated on June 23rd, schools during the end-of-year work plan reviews repeatedly mentioned how collaborative and resilient our educators have been during our closure. They also mentioned how teachers need that set-aside time to thoughtfully plan and respond to a hybrid learning environment. So to ensure quality and rigorous instruction for all children, both in the face-to-face and e-learning environments, our team believes it is critical to provide teachers with dedicated time to collaborate and plan, as well as to engage in rich professional learning. This is why we're advocating for every single teacher, pre-K through 12th grade, to have virtual Fridays each week during the transition period. The virtual Fridays ensure educators have time to collaborate, plan, and design learning experiences that dovetail between those face-to-face days and the e-learning days. These virtual Fridays also give them consistent access to professional learning. Finally, it gives them time to engage in parent conferences, small group service, special services sessions, virtual advocacy check-ins, as well as scheduled office hours. To be clear, students on virtual Fridays will experience the asynchronous learning that we were describing in slides before. However, they will still have access to school staff through those scheduled check-in opportunities.
And all this will be conducted in the buildings?
Yes. As stated previously, our goal in the transition approach to the 5-day model is to maximize instructional time with students while keeping everyone safe. By using the hybrid model during our transition period, we have time to practice those instructional structures we were talking about for e-learning. Also, we're able to practice our safety protocols and make any tweaks necessary within the first month of school. Ultimately, having this transition period with the AABB hybrid model helps us to track the impact of COVID-19 and quarantining on our school before moving forward in a 5-day model. So to end, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Online Learning Academy, which is our second choice for families. And I want to give a shout out to Howard Bissell and Margaret Ann White, who have been instrumental in helping us to plan that. They have been fantastic, and Thesa Briggs and her team at IT. Students in the Online Learning Academy are not bound by a traditional schedule. The content and schedule students will experience is flexible and nimble based on their need. However, students will be required to accomplish their learning goals over the course of the week with direction from their teacher. Like their peers in the AABB hybrid model, they'll still be given informal feedback on work that they do along the way, and they still will get formal grades on assignments like their peers in a face-to-face environment. Deadlines for student work in the Online Learning Academy will be set by the student's teachers, and deadlines will be flexible and based on the needs of the learning and the student. This is the same thing that happens in a face-to-face environment. All coursework offered in LOLA will depend on two things: student requests and needs, and available teachers. So the LOLA team is diligently working to determine that master schedule based on those two parameters. This is where we really need help from our families in Lexington 1. In order to finalize that schedule, it would be very helpful if families could complete the Lexington 1 Online Learning Academy survey as soon as possible. Guardians were sent this survey for each child in the family. I just ask that they please take a moment to complete it. It should be in your email. This information is truly vital to our planning work for both the Online Learning Academy and for the students' home schools. So to support the student's choice of option, I wanted to explain what instruction might look like. A student's experience in the Online Learning Academy really does depend on their grade level. Elementary and middle grade students will have a structured daily schedule with regular online check-ins with their teacher or teachers daily. During synchronous time with teachers, elementary and middle school students in the Online Learning Academy may have short bits of whole group instruction and small group breakout rooms in programs like Zoom or Google. They might be conferring with their teacher or with their peers about questions that they have. At other times, our elementary and middle grade students will be conducting independent practice on their own that they then bring back to a scheduled meeting with their peers and teachers. Our high school students' experiences will look a little bit differently, though. Our high school students in the Online Learning Academy will be largely made up of the asynchronous instruction, which students can kind of access and do and is flexible. It means older children will be working through instructional content on their device in a flexible manner. High school students, though, won't be on their own by themselves all day, every day. They will still have scheduled synchronous online meetings with teachers throughout the week. Often these meetings might just be small groups where students apply what they've been learning independently, or they might be meetings individually with teachers where they get extra help or feedback on assignments. Instructionally, the experiences students will get in the Online Learning Academy will be as rigorous as teaching and learning in the face-to-face model. Also, the continuity of the content that students will experience will allow them to transfer back to a face-to-face environment seamlessly when that time comes. Again, our goal with communication, even in the Online Learning Academy, is to have streamlined and predictable communication between teachers and students. We still will be leveraging those scheduled check-ins during office hours with children, in addition to, which would be their choice, in addition to scheduled meetings that they should definitely come to. So in closing, our families do have two schedule options from which to choose. One is the transition period to a 5-day model, and the other is the Online Learning Academy through Lexington District 1. Families have questions. If they do have questions about the models or safety procedures that we discussed tonight, I ask that they visit and read the information on our Stronger Together website that's linked on the Lexington 1 District webpage. There will be a handout version of this presentation, as well as a really helpful FAQ document found on the website. Lastly, I just want to say again and encourage our families to complete the survey for us so that we can plan the best experience possible for their children. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
So going back to the online academy, how many students do we roughly have at this point committed?
The last time I looked, we were above 5,000.
Okay, and so if we were to band that elementary, middle, high, is there fairly even split, or is it weighted one way particularly more than the other?
I can't answer that.
More secondary?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Middle is a little bit higher, Jeff. It changes daily. The last time I looked, they were pretty steady across the plate, but it was early this week, Monday, the last time I looked.
Okay. So if we looked at it from an equivalency perspective, we're creating a high school, 1.5 middle schools, 1.5 elementary schools at the end of the day. How are we approaching staffing of that? So, obviously we spoke about teachers and those kind of things, but obvious, as we all know, the needs far outweigh just, the teaching side of it. How, from a administrator perspective, are we carving out administrators to dedicate to the virtual academy? Are we carving out school counselors? Are we carving out our mental health counselors? Are we able to provide the same product virtually as we are in the hybrid model at the end of the day from a staffing perspective?
So in general, I will say yes. I'm going to hand it over to my friend Mike so that he can give a couple more specifics. That is something we're working through, which is part of the reason why we need a survey from every family. We can't staff a school unless we know what children need.
Yeah,
So
that's the big issue, is that they've got to tell us. But I went through the numbers today. Howard sent me the middle school and high school numbers of how many students wanted online academy at middle and high school. I took those numbers against what we budgeted for the school year this year. And so I'll make up some numbers. I'll say, let's say River Bluff High School was budgeted for 2,100 students. We had 700 students want to be in the virtual academy. So I took 700 from 2,100, put those in the virtual academy, and then I looked, this is what we have left. And then based on our formulas of how we would staff a school, this is what the FTE would be assigned to that school for face-to-face instruction. What's left would be assigned for virtual instruction. Because you're gonna have to, that's one of the misconceptions that really landed with me today, is that, you know, you're gonna have to staff the virtual side. So just because you're gonna have fewer kids in a building, that's social distancing them, but it's not like you're gonna split a 25 number class into 2 classes of 12 because you're gonna have 2 teachers to teach them, because one of those teachers are gonna have to teach some kids on the other side in the virtual academy. So I went down the whole list for middle and high today. It was initial because those numbers as they were coming in today, Howard and I were on the program at the same time, and his numbers look different from mine. Not that much different, but a little bit. So we started asking questions. Well, they were getting responses like 5 every hour or 5 every minute. And so it was willing, so it's kind of hard. But I did the counselors, because we staff counselors 300 to 1. So if you have, you know, 600 kids in a virtual academy, to me that's 2 counselors, and they're going to come from the existing staff. We've asked teachers to apply to be a virtual teacher, because I think Natalie said this the last time, every teacher is not a virtual teacher. And so we've asked teachers to apply for that. We had a tremendous number of teachers that when they responded initially, they said to us they would do virtual or the hybrid model. They would do either or. When we pushed them, they mostly went to the hybrid model. We're probably going to have to tap into those people now and say, look, would you be willing to do this? We've really kind of rethought our whole thing, because we didn't expect, I mean, when you think about, we had a meeting not too long ago, and we were talking about, and Jeff Caldwell said, well, we're going to have 64 virtual teachers. And I'm thinking, no. If we got 4,000 students taking an online academy, it's going to be considerably more. It's probably going to be roughly 200 teachers in the virtual academy. Initially, we thought we would just use like AES and house the teachers there for the virtual academy, and real quickly we realized, well, that's not going to work because you can't put them all in AES. And so, and when I was looking at the numbers today, it may play out where you can have a virtual academy within each school, a team of teachers within each school, and maybe those decisions are yet to be made, but those are the conversations that we're having. But yes, you're right. We're going to have to identify a couple of counselors might be virtual counselors. One of the things we talked about with like interventionists, for example, they might not be total virtual. What we might, because interventionists work very closely with the teachers that are within the building, but they may do some interventions face-to-face, and then they may do some virtual interventions.
Yes. I think there's a ton of, just kind of like you hinted on with Fridays being a dedicated day for teachers to essentially perfect their craft of the virtual experience, the e-learning experience. Something about having that dedicated time makes all the difference in the world. And so I could imagine if I were an administrator or a teacher or a school counselor, that if I had to break up between an AA and then a BB and then a virtual, and I had to do check-ins on each one of those, it's almost unfathomable to expect that. And so I think there's a ton of wisdom in trying to staff an entire virtual school like what but it's a gigantic jigsaw at the end of the day. I mean, that's you're getting the number, you're building the ship in the middle of the ocean, and you.
One of the elementary schools at kindergarten, Kimberly was my office, and we're looking at, and there were like 13 kindergarten kids. Well, you can't have a teacher assigned to just those kids. So the question is, well, what do you do with those 13 kids?
Where's your microphone, Mike? He needs his microphone again so that the recorded people can hear.
So, it was 13 kids.
It's not on.
It's on, but it's not, unless you turn it back on. It's on.
13 kids selected kindergarten in the virtual academy at a school. we would not be able to put one teacher to that. So probably what's going to happen with those 13 kids, they will be assigned to a teacher maybe at another school that also only has 10 kids or 13 kids. So in the virtual academy, you can do that a lot better than you can do it face-to-face. So those are the kinds of decisions we'll have to make. And we did talk about looking at administrators. I did that today too, trying to see if we could pull an administrator, an FTE from a building to work. Howard, I think, is going to be the overall overarching administrator for the whole academy, but we might have to have, as you said, administrators at each level.
Thank you.
Well, and to dovetail on that, Mr. Stacy, because I had the question about an administrator, just, if you've got students in the online academy that have IEPs, you have to have an AP attend those meetings. And I think there's going to be probably some significant need for a school-level administrator for the online academy, because I know Mr. Bissell has a lot of things on his plate anyway, and just to make sure that we have that.
We talked about that the other day, and some of those could all be like the principal or administrator in the school could serve both for their students within that school. But I promise you, we have really worked through or are working through a lot of those questions.
Ms. Smith, I wanted to make the comment, I actually was talking to some other parents last week, and specifically for our college-bound high school students. It is not a bad thing for them to get a taste of online school, because my son is a rising junior at Clemson, and for 4 semesters as a residential student at Clemson, he's had 2 classes each semester that were online. There were not options to take it in face-to-face. They were just offered online. And so I think specifically for college-bound high school students, that's something they need to have some training in when they have the supports of our school system around them, where they have teachers that, they're one of 30 kids in an online class instead of one of 300 kids in a college online class. So I think we're really giving them some tools and equipping them to be ready, because most of our colleges and universities now, the 100 and 200 level classes are almost all online. Right. And so I think this is we can look at it as a little bit of a positive thing for our students to have that, to dip that toe in the water and get, learn how to manage and navigate an online class, because it's out there and they're going to have to deal with it at some point in time. So.
Well, and I did want to mention 2 things. First, I wanted to just say that I really believe our teachers are up to this challenge, can do it, and love children. And so this isn't any different than planning. I shouldn't say it that way. This is different than planning for face-to-face, but it's not any different in how they care about kids and want to do their best. We just need to give them the tools and the time to do it. So a hybrid approach gives them that time and those tools to do it. The other thing I wanted to mention are numbers. So thank you, Mr. Caldwell, for grabbing these for me. Our current kind of percentages and numbers at each grade band, 25% overall in the district has selected so far the Online Learning Academy. That roughly is around 2,300 students at elementary. Actually, it's 2,327. High school is 1,563, and middle school is 1,403. So as a former middle school administrator, 1,200 students was a lot. I loved every single one of them, but there were a lot of people in the building. Yeah. So it's really critical for us to get this right, to have the numbers right. So families have kind of, as people have come out and said things, like after Dr. Little did the Together Talks last week, it really relieved a lot of tension and concern around our schedule options. So we had kind of a shift in what people wanted in the survey. I just would encourage families to talk about it, consider what's in the best interest of their sweethearts, and make the right choice for them, and just settle on an option so that we can do what's best for their family.
Dr. Smith, I have one request. I do think consistency and stability of an educational model is important. And the reason I bring that up is in the hospital at Lexington, we're on week 19 of this. And so obviously we have exposures both from patients and employees that then we have to quarantine and manage through that. So I think it's going to be very difficult on a student, as well as the teacher's interface with that student, when we have an exposure, whether it's AA, BB, or a full 5-day, and then we have to go through the quarantine process, of which DHEC's given very strict guidelines. If your exposure's today, you need a test 7 days from now. So you're going home for 7 days, then we test you, and testing reagents are getting shorter. The supply is not increasing. So we're telling patients 7 to 14 days. So now you've chosen the AA or BB, or we're 5 days a week if we step into that. And now a child has moved through the school, ends up being positive, has exposed however many kids, 20, 30, 40. And now all those kids, have to go home based upon their exposure, wait a couple days to be tested, then be tested, and wait a couple more weeks to get the results. So I think that yo-yo effect of coming in and out of a educational structure, is going to be hard on our kids. So, and I don't have the perfect spot, the sweet spot, but I do think a system where we're not pulling kids in and out of whatever structure we've deemed best for them is important. So.
Yes, quarantine, and that's why the measured approach we're taking, this transition approach, is so important, because we need to see the effects of what COVID-19 positive cases and potential quarantining might do to a school and to the instructional model. That we need to be able to do that safely, and that's why we're very much encouraging the use of this hybrid model to begin with, because that allows for less children in the building, allows for greater social distancing, which protects them more, as well as the adults in the building. Like, we need the adults to teach the babies that show up, so we need them to be healthy and safe as well.
Let's hit on that. You had mentioned evaluation at 4 weeks as we looked for this transitional period from the AABB to 5 days face-to-face. Where have we landed in terms of the data that we're going to use to sort of guide these decisions?
So I'm going to give you a general answer, and then I'm looking at Dr. Little, because he has been talking with doctors a lot about this, and with Amy Wood, our director of nursing. We're going to be looking at COVID cases across the state, but more importantly, quarantining, as well as positive cases in schools. So Dr. Little, do you want to give more details?
Yes, certainly, thank you. And Dr. Smith, again, an incredible job. I was sitting over here thinking, it's like watching Picasso paint, her explaining this experience. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for all of your work and your team's work. So we obviously want to be data-driven and make data-driven decisions. And the data we want to really focus on, and well, first of all, let's go back and why 4 weeks. One of the reasons why we have 4 weeks is so we can go through 2 infection cycles, so that we can really see the impact of COVID-19 on schools across South Carolina, across our country, and we'll really know what it's going to happen once the school doors are open. And we'll get to see 2 infection cycles of that. The data we want to follow very closely are really threefold. We want to see the number of students and staff who test positive for the coronavirus, obviously. We want to see the number of students and staff that would be impacted by quarantining. And we want to see the number of students and staff who would have to be excluded based upon symptoms. And you look at all 3 of those, and we are building a model of where we have benchmarks on where we need to make a decision at a school or even a district level based upon those benchmarks. Because as Dr. Powers mentioned earlier, quarantining is going to have a massive impact of our schools. It will have a massive impact on how we can serve students. It'll have a massive impact on how we can instruct students. So to use the high school student model, when my daughter, who's a rising senior, she walks into a classroom, if we are 5 days a week and she is positive for the coronavirus, every classroom she walks into, she will require students in every classroom to then be quarantined for up to 14 days. Likewise, if you have your teaching staff, and either they have to be quarantined, their spouses have to be quarantined, their children have to be quarantined due to positives, all of those things will end up impacting their ability to serve our students. If you look at bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our housekeeping staff, all of those adults that are absolutely critical about the daily runnings. And again, I always tell people, I don't want to make lists because when I make lists, I end up forgetting people. And it's not that their contribution is not important. I just don't remember them in that very second. I would tell you there are numerous adults who are absolutely vital to the ongoing delivery of the school model that are not just teachers. And so we also have to see what the impact on those other classifications are as well. So when we take a look at those data will really be the data we pay attention to. Positives of COVID for students and staff, quarantining for students and staff, and we'll look at the symptom exclusions for students and staff as well. Because again, if you have a fever, there's a certain process that now DHEC goes through about how long you are to be out and what that looks like as well. So there are a lot of these issues. So when I would tell parents, especially the folks that came tonight that talked about the 5-day-a-week model, I would say that based upon feedback we got from the last time, the 5-day-a-week model is certainly our goal. That's what we want to be in, and we're using the hybrid model to get to a 5-day-a-week model. As we are using that hybrid in that transition period, that's where we want to make sure that we're able to safely deliver instruction to maximize that face-to-face time. Because again, to Dr. Powers' point about stability of the instructional model, what would be much more chaotic for Kaylee is if she's going to school every 2 weeks and I'm taking her out every 2 weeks based upon any type of quarantining or those types of issues associated with kids in her school. Even if 1%, say, of River Bluff or Lexington or White Knoll, the really large schools that are all right around 2,000 kids, even if 1% of those students test positive for the coronavirus, that's about 20 kids. They would then take another 400 to 600 kids along with them to be quarantined. So that's those are some of the elements that we're really looking at about how best we can manage those things. But again, you really asked about the data. The data that we're using are those 3 big data sources, along with the DHEC numbers about community widespread.
So just indulge me for a second. At my office, I have this machine that sits there, and we do a nasal swab, and we put the cassette in the machine, and it tells you whether or not you have COVID. Does it in 15 minutes. We are required to report positive cases to DHEC upon a positive test result. Well, it occurred to us that nowhere do we report negatives. Well, that's weird, because if we as a culture, we have become so much about the numbers, but if the numbers we're not following are wholly accurate, we get an inaccurate assumption at the end of the day. So we contacted DHEC and said, well, what's the deal with negative tests? Why are you not requiring those? And it took a day for a callback. And it was because that hadn't been high on the list yet. And so if we're talking about percent positive, well, then you have to take into account your negatives. We're just one office. Now you extrapolate it times the 7 offices I have, and then you extrapolate it times the other number of community offices that have the exact same capability as I do. Those numbers get very large very quick. So you've seen a lot about percent positives and trends in the community and those kind of things. And I really kind of caution against that, because it is a moving target, and it is only as good as the data that is supplied. I think the more that we can develop on the lowest local level, and everything you spoke about, that's the exact same things I have written down as to what we should follow practically at every school, and create our benchmarks to know, even if we use the same benchmarks that DHEC has put forth as their low, medium, high thresholds, even if we extrapolate those numbers down to the lowest possible level at our school, you can still use that good, sound data. At my office, we're at 4%. So of 238 tests that we have run, 10 have come back positive. So according to DHEC's data, we are low. And the worst mistake you can ever make is to think that a child will behave the same as an adult, and from a medical perspective. It's not the case. Kids are not little adults at the end of the day. We're seeing data, and that's what they out about, and why you're seeing all of these various studies that come out here and there that are demonstrating that kids just don't behave like adults do. That's really what the studies say. And so we can't treat the numbers that are a general population number and just extrapolate it down to kids and say, okay, job's done. We have to get to the lowest possible level. And I think that's what you're trying to accomplish, and I would applaud that.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So like even sometimes community trends do not show up the same way in schools. Whether it be flu, sometimes the flu in the community is worse than it is in the school. Sometimes it's worse in the school than it is in the community. They're not necessarily, and I'm not trying to compare flu to coronavirus,
Sure,
just to say, I'm just using that as an example. It's just sometimes you don't see the same thing. And so by looking at the actual numbers on how it looks in our schools, it would allow us to then to make decisions about individual schools or attendance areas and really drill down to those individual entities as opposed to just making decisions at the district level. Because, for example, if we get into, say when we go 5 days a week, if there's a hot spot somewhere in our community, then we need to address the hot spot in our community. We don't need to say necessarily, we may need to say this, but not necessarily, election district 1 all needs to go do X. It may be school A, B, and C needs to do that based upon these data that we're looking at. So that's really the benchmarks we're really trying to establish, and we're going to continue to collaborate with obviously the doctors on the board as well as our LMC doctors and their folks from the Children's Hospital as well, because we want to make sure that the data we're using are really precise and talk about the impact that we're seeing in our actual schools.
Thank you.
Jada has a few questions.
yeah.
I don't know if they're for
I know,
you or.
I'm used to seeing everyone up there. Yes,
I
ma'am.
like sitting down here. Are we pursuing the training and rolling out of teletherapy to provide speech, PT, OT, and hearing services?
Yes, ma'am.
We are. Okay, great. This is probably for Mr. Stacy. How many teachers want to teach virtually, and how many do we need?
We had about 100 respond that they wanted 100% virtual. Of that 100, I can't tell you exactly how many have applied. I didn't look at that today, but we have opened up. We had a posting. I want to say we had 60-something apply for the first posting. We closed it, and then we reopened it because Howard's team is going to vet those teachers, talk with them about what it means to teach in the virtual academy. As I said earlier, I didn't know the numbers were as high as 5,000. When I kind of did the numbers at 4,300, I was thinking we'd need about 175 teachers, but that was dividing it pretty evenly, and in the world of school, it doesn't work that way. So it'll be probably somewhere between 175 and 200. Again, today's work was taking the actual numbers as they came in, applying them to what we budgeted our FTE for, subtract them out, and then that would tell us kind of what we had to work with.
Okay. You also mentioned that some teachers wanted to teach virtually from home. Why are they being required to come into the building?
So that's the conversation that we're having now individually with teachers. In fact, I've made several calls. My staff has made several calls. Our position is that if you're staying home because you are a primary caregiver of your children, it's very difficult for you to be a primary caregiver for that group, that kid, and also be responsible for this group of kids. And so initially we were thinking that we could ask teachers to report to a building, that would eliminate that whole issue and we would be fine. It may be that we have to rethink that if we don't have enough takers, and that it's a work in progress. Did I miss something? Go for it.
So from an instructional standpoint, in terms of collaboration, there are times when being face-to-face or having access to each other in a face-to-face environment makes collaboration richer, stronger, just a better experience for teachers. Now, I will tell you, I've been doing lots and lots of Zooming and collaboration and problem solving and brainstorming. I've had the experience to do that this summer, but I would just stress that whenever we can pull people together safely, like teachers together safely in appropriate groups, that it would be good for them for both the interaction part, to see each other, to share ideas, but also to get the professional learning. Doesn't mean it can't happen virtually, but having some face-to-face time as a teacher will be vital.
Thank you. I know, Mr. Stacy, you mentioned some of them may have young children home, and some of them even said, you know, I need to get out of the house, I can't concentrate here. But I think maybe if we gave them that choice, instead of telling them, you have to come into the building, it would help out as far as, you know, space in the building and other ways. Also, why aren't they allowed to go back to their school that they came from once they sign up for virtual?
Okay, so we have not said they can't come back. We just wanted to, we were trying to be as transparent. And you like that a lot as far as transparency.
Very good.
We were trying to be very transparent with all of our employees. I did not want anybody to get caught up in a situation thinking they were doing this, and then at the end of all this, and we start coming back, lo and behold, they don't have a job. They'll have a job, but maybe not the job they thought they were gonna have. So we wanted to be real clear. I had one school in the initial survey, 34 of their teachers said they wanted to teach 100% virtual out of 100 and something, like 104 responses. That's a statement.
Yes, it is.
And so what we wanted to do then is I called that principal and I said, I think you probably need to have another principal meeting, another staff meeting, and let them know that, you know, if that many from your school want to teach virtual, if they really want to do that, we're going to let that happen. But they also need to know that if all their students choose not to go virtual, I'm going to have to hire people to come into those classrooms and teach those kids face to face. And at the end of the semester, then we'll have to make a decision. Those kids are very used to this teacher that's been teaching them for a whole semester face to face. And then I'm going to pull that teacher up and throw another teacher down. That might not happen. And so we just wanted to make sure that if the decision they were making was the decision they really wanted to make. And so that kind of got construed. So we're trying to be real clear with teachers now when we call them and let them know. We're going to make every effort to get you back to where you belong. Even like I said, talking about maybe having pockets of teachers at the schools so that they will see that it's really to try to get them there.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, that helps. I just know some teachers said they would maybe be more willing to sign up for virtual, but there's some kind of statement in there, I guess, that says you're not guaranteed your position.
Right.
But also, like you said, the 34 teachers, they were making a statement, and I heard about that, and I also heard that word came down the pipe that Central Services gave them their survey a second time. And
we gave them an opportunity to make sure they were making the decision they wanted to make.
Okay. That just worries me that we have survey results and then somebody from Central Services says.
No, we didn't tell them they had to we didn't tell them they had to make another choice. What I said is that if you're making a statement and I'm holding you to that virtual choice, but that's really not what you wanted to do, I wanted you to know the consequence of that. And so that's why we're trying to be very transparent with them for the reasons I just said. And so then that principal went back to him and said to him, you know, just make sure you understand this, and that's where we're going. And again, we're going to do everything in our power to get them back where they belong or where they want to be. But I mean, the truth is, there are no guarantees. I mean, there's no guarantees from, this year to the next year for any teacher, because sometimes enrollment numbers change, and we have to make shifts.
Right, okay, thank you. Natalie, let's see, why did we change the PD days from Wednesday to Friday?
So that's a really great question. It's multifaceted. I can tell you part of that was feedback from elementary schools. When we understood that we needed to pull them into the transition period, we were trying to be very purposeful around our youngest learners and what they would need to be successful in that kind of environment. So it helped our K-2 children to have those back-to-back days. The other part of that was when we started doing math around the split that we had. If you had the Tuesday, Friday days, you missed more face-to-face days than the other cohort did. Because often in a school schedule, because of holidays, right, Fridays are a day that are missed. So that was something that the technical scheduling committee kind of looked at and did some math around that helped to inform some of that discussion. And finally, I think some community feedback also came to us that Fridays are a better day for them because they often have some flexibility with work on Fridays.
Thank you. What happens when a teacher's out and a sub is not available? Because I know now they'll just kind of spread those kids out, but with what we have going on.
We can't spread them out.
Right.
So that is part of the work that the substituting group is working on. And so I believe that we'll have more information in the next update or two to kind of tell you what that'll look like.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Can I jump in with one more question? I'm sorry, Mr. Stacy, you just
Come
sat
on
back
back
down.
up, Mike.
I'm so sorry. And this is quick. Are we, and I'm sure you're doing this, I'm just going to confirm it, with the face-to-face model while we're in the hybrid timeframe, are we keeping a close eye on class sizes so that when we return to 5 days, we didn't like fudge here and oh, that teacher, they only have half their class on Monday, Tuesday, so we'll put 17 instead of 14 so that when we come back, we don't have these bloated classes. Are we being very careful about that?
It's really a schedule thing, but I
Okay.
will tell you that when I was doing the FTE, we're gonna schedule them like it would, what the schedule would be the same, whether they're going on a hybrid model or a 5-day, those cohorts will be made as a class.
Okay.
And then that class will separate out and then come back together. And the substitute question, I'll just say real quick, we know that we're gonna have to have all hands on deck. We know that we cannot split classes in the elementary schools like we've done in the past, and that's when we'll depend on these support staff that we have within the building, and some of them may have to come in and serve as the sub for that day. And it's so convoluted because a teacher could be quarantined but not sick, so they could telework, so they could actually do the work, maybe Zoom into the class with the sub managing the kids. A lot of that will happen, but we know everybody's going to have to be all hands on deck, and that's what we're telling our principals.
Oh, that's a good point you make. Because I know, and I didn't bring it up in the budget hearing this time because we were, tightening our belt, but do we have any plans on getting technology for instructional assistants? Because I know when the teacher is out, and like you said, they need to fill in, they're not even allowed to sign in to the teacher's device. And we don't have any devices that we give our instructional assistants.
Dr. Talley, and we've been talking about that this morning, even she is working really hard to make sure that we have the support, technology support that we need for everybody. But I do think we'll probably have to relax some of our, our rules a little bit to make sure that we can make this work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So the good thing about the technology that we do use, I can speak from a educator classroom point of view, is that everyone's login is specific to you. So as a teacher or as a Lexington 1 employee, if Kimberly's computer is off, I can turn on Kimberly's computer and sign on as me and still get to the content. What teachers would need to do is then share all the things in the Google Drive that they need for that day with whoever their instructional aide is. So it absolutely is possible for us to get people access to the things that they need inside of the cloud. So hands off to IT, that's made all of that possible for us, because that's critical. You did mention, Anne Marie, Ms. Green, about the scheduling. So we are balancing between cohorts. So you will have, like teachers, when they collapse back together, it'll be a normal class size. I do want to say, though, and this is the critical part, the online academy, we can't have these shifts midstream in the middle of the semester, because those children are not the children that we would have normally scheduled in the cohorts. So I can't pick up 10 children from online academy and stick them in a 28-person class between the two cohorts, right? That puts them beyond the class limit. So that's the reason why, I don't know if I'm stepping out of place, Dr. Little, but as a technical scheduling person, that's the reason why we are really encouraging not making the switch out of online academy until the end of the semester, because there really is no way for us to adequately, safely, fairly transition kids back and forth all semester. Okay.
Dr. Little, I think a good segue at this point would be for you to remind everyone about the Together Talks on the YouTube channel, what we've done so far. Again, I think we talked about it earlier, but let's go, because that answers so many questions for parents, teachers, and you just roll one out today that I
Yes,
think
ma'am,
is
and
very
all
helpful
of those
too.
are currently on our Stronger Together website. All three of those Together
And walk
Talks.
through the three that are out there, just so that
So the
people who
one
may
for
not be
staff, as we talked about, was really in reaction to the press conference that took place. There was lots of anxiety and trepidation around how we were going to begin school and in what fashion, and if we were going to be able to do that safely. And I think we outlined that for our staff in that first Together Talk. The second Together Talk was really targeted to our parents and our families about, based upon the feedback we had received, it also overlapped quite a bit with the Together Talk with our staff, but it really outlined what you saw today in broad strokes to let people know that we heard them. Our goal is to get back to 5 days a week. And again, I want to stress that to the board and to our community. Our goal is to utilize this transition time to be 5 days a week. I do not disagree with anybody that says our children need to be in school. I do not disagree with anybody who says it's for their mental and physical well-being to be in school. We want to make that happen. We, again, want to make that happen in a safe, responsible, and measured approach, and that's why we put in this transition period so that we can do all the things that you've heard tonight and then be prepared and be able to do that 5 day a week model really, really well. The flip side of that is jumping into a 5 day a week model. The analogies that I use are twofold. One, you don't learn how to swim by jumping directly in the deep end. You don't learn how to ride a bike by standing on the tallest hill in your neighborhood. I know we don't know a lot about hills around here because we're in Columbia, but in the Lexington, Columbia area. But where I'm from, that meant a big deal if you could ride down the tallest hill in the neighborhood. And so by doing those two things, we really prepare ourselves to be successful all year. I would also tell you, I think I am count me in the cautiously optimistic side that comes second semester, we might be able to get back to pretty normal. If there's some, I mean, the doctors will know more than I do about ways we can treat the coronavirus and keep people healthy. I'm certainly being cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, we have to prepare for the whole school year. So if those things do not materialize, then we are forced to look at how we're going to balance out the entirety of the school year and how we're going to serve our students in those forms and fashions. And so by practicing early, front-loading it early, it'll prepare us for the entire school year. It's very similar to your first couple weeks in the classroom. Teachers will always tell you, make sure you give your students a chance to practice their procedures so they know what the expectations are very early on. And by putting some time and energy and effort into that early, it ends up saving you time on the back end. And that's a very similar approach that we're taking here.
We'll talk about the one that rolled out today, because I don't know that many people know about that one, because it's brand new, so.
Great, yeah, so what we did, we had 2 pediatric infectious disease doctors. We had received, or I'd received, I don't want to say we, I'd received some emails from families concerned about the use of masks. Now, I will tell you, I am probably still a work in progress when it comes to a mask. You see, while I'm talking right now, the mask feels to come down below my nose. I will at some point here in just a second, now that it has slipped all on, I will pull it back up and kind of do this. I know Mary's telling me to pinch. I keep pinching the nose thing. It doesn't quite work. So I'm a work in progress when it comes to a mask as well. And so I wanted to have 2 pediatric infectious disease doctors talk to us about the impact of masks for treating the coronavirus, and to talk to those doctors about, again, pediatric doctors, because we were also talking about a bunch of kids. If you look on the internet, you see all kinds of things written about masks. You see some folks that say masks absolutely have no impact on this whatsoever. You have other people who say masks are the #1 thing that you have to utilize. And so the other part of this chat today, the mask chat, was to really separate fact from fiction, and to really drill down into the facts about mask and what that looks like. And so they were able to do that for us today. Spoiler alert, both doctors agreed that masks were the #1 factor for protecting ourselves from the coronavirus, and that they are absolutely essential in terms of controlling the coronavirus. And they said any mask is better than no mask. And so they really encouraged us to tell our families to find masks that feel comfortable, and what those look like. Now, we will also, when we talk about masks, this is kind of beyond that, we will be talking about some exceptions. We will be offering exceptions to that if you have, a physical limitation or some other things like that, and we'll be rolling those out to our families as well. But again, the idea is that if we wear our mask, even when we touch it the way I tend to do, and I promise our community, I'm promising the board, I'm working to be a better person who wears a mask. It's just incredible. I can't quite figure it out yet, but I promise we're going to keep practicing it. But really the key part to that, though, is that masks are absolutely essential, and they pose no physical threat to our students. And they really did a nice job of separating the fact from fiction when it comes to masks. So I would encourage you. It's about 28 minutes. It really did. We recorded it this morning, and it really went well. And I'm so thankful for Prisma Children's Hospital for participating in that. But I'd also say I'm also thankful for some doctors at LMC for working with us as well. So we've really had a great partnership in both places, and really had a nice experience, because this is a public health issue beyond an educational issue. So we're really good at solving educational issues. We certainly need lots of support in terms of solving public health issues. And we've had really great support from our doctors doing that. So again, I would encourage everybody to look at those videos, especially the newest one, the mask chat, on our Stronger Together website.
And that can be found on the lexington1.net website, and also we have that YouTube channel.
Yes, ma'am. It's really lexington1.net / I think it's stronger dash, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And I also want to just take a minute. I know last week there were some things said about teachers in the state of South Carolina, and I just want to personally go on record and say that I love our teachers, and I love what they're doing. I love what they did when they found out on Sunday at, I think, 3:15 that Monday they were going virtual. And for the pandemic, I think it has been a hard time, and I just want to say I think they've done great work, and I appreciate them, and I look forward to implementing this plan, because it sounds really fancy. And, anything we can do to get through this pandemic and get ourselves back to normal, I just say kudos to everybody.
I would like to brag on our
hard.
team. One other thing, I'm sorry, Ms. Smith. I would like to brag on our team. When we were talking to the pediatric doctors this morning, one of the things that really made me smile was they told us they loved our plan, and they felt like our plan made a lot of sense. They felt like our plan was an incredibly strong plan, and so again, that happens because lots of teamwork. But it was great to hear these experts in pediatric infectious disease tell us that we had a strong plan, and that plan looked like it would prepare us for success. So that's where we are.
And walk us through, now it was submitted to the State Department of Education Friday.
I think we were before Friday. Yes, ma'am. It was
Okay.
due Friday.
It was due Friday.
Yes, ma'am.
And so now we're waiting on Mrs. Spearman and her group to approve it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And do we have any time frame on when we will know more about that?
I'm not 100% sure. You know, they're going through quite a few plans, but they have to turn those around sooner rather than later. Again, as you can imagine, that what we've presented tonight is going to be a serious logistical lift. And so it's going to be important that we have time to be able to put those together. But we're continuing on as if it's my anticipation that those plans will be approved.
Okay, thank you.
And I just have a question. Why did you decide not to present the plan to the board for a vote, but instead just as a report item?
So, you know, when I examine our board policies, we'd had some conversations about this. And when we think about the operation of the internal machinery designed to serve the school programs, I felt like that fell under that category, that the board is on the governance and the policy side. And so this is about instruction and how we were going to serve students, especially considering it was a month-long transition period. And then we would be, again, providing the board a lot of opportunity for feedback during these conversations. And so there you go.
Thank you. I would just like to tell the board, Ms. Benedict, who spoke, as I know Mr. Anderson said earlier, that kind of just what Dr. Little said, but as a board, you know, we keep getting these emails saying, y'all, please do this, don't do this, consider this. We can direct the administration to do, you know, what we choose to do as a board. So I just wanted to put that out there and say, you know, we are the boss of the superintendent. And instead of me continuously telling somebody, you know, basically we've been hands-off in this whole process. And I feel so bad when people thank us because, you know, these are the people really doing the hard work, putting everything together. I mean, we don't know who these committees are, you know, who's serving on them. We don't have a copy of the plan. Like, we're just not involved at all. You know, we just show up and get a presentation. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, we did hire the superintendent to run the district, and I feel real good because we have the experts running the district, and that's what we hired them to do. And so I personally feel really good about that because they've been in the classrooms, they've been with the children, they've worked with the teachers. I just feel like let's let the experts recommend to us what we need to do. But anyway, I do want to thank the teachers again. I cannot say that enough. And the other thing, I wanted to say one more thing. Our schools are our teachers. And when people talk about the health risk of the children, those are so important, but we also have to look out for the health risk of our teachers. It's not either or, it's and we want everybody to stay healthy. And our goal is to go five days face-to-face if we can make that happen. So thank you, ladies. Anything else on that, Dr. Little?
No, ma'am. I think right now what we want to make sure that we do, last time because time got late, we were really pressed for time, and so we skipped over operations update. And so Mr. Salters, as he is often...
Well, no, we're not there yet.
Oh, we have to do the next thing.
We made a
I'm
change
sorry.
to the agenda.
That's right. Excuse me.
So...
That was so long ago.
He is
I'm
running.
sorry I forgot
He's
about it.
running, but we're not running that far that fast yet. So board, remember we made a move on the agenda, so we're going to go back to an action item, which is 9.0, and we are going to vote on changes to the 2020-2021 academic calendar. Dr. Talley is going to give us this information. So before she does that, let's get a motion on the floor so then we can open it up for discussion. So do I hear a motion to approve the revisions, adjustments to the 2020-2021 academic school calendar?
Madam Chair, I move that the Lexington School District 1 Board of Trustees approve the revisions, adjustments to the 2020-2021 academic school year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oswald. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. Okay, now at this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Talley. Let her walk us through these changes, and I know we've had some changes from Superintendent Spearman and from the governor, and so kind of fill us in.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Tonight, I am bringing you recommended revisions to the 2020-2021 academic calendar. And I'll start with the most important thing that I think parents and you would want to know, and that is tonight I'm recommending that we do push back the start of the school year for students to August 31st. This will allow the district, as has already been mentioned tonight, we need time to develop a quality and safe school opening, and this does give us 2 weeks prior to the opening to work with our staff to ensure academics, safety, and that all precautions will be implemented successfully. And then, of course, as has already been delineated by Dr. Smith, that would also give us 4 weeks in a hybrid model so that on September 28th, if all conditions are favorable, we would start, as Dr. Little has said, our goal has always been to start a 5-day face-to-face model. The changes, I want to be real transparent about this. The changes in the revised calendar, we've worked very hard to make them the most least disruptive that we could. It's not a perfect calendar, but this calendar does accomplish a few goals for us. It gives us time to have more data regarding the COVID-19 spread. We're certainly interested in that. It provides us with monthly natural breaks first semester. You will notice in this calendar that we still have November 25th or the 27th for Thanksgiving break. You'll also notice that we have December 23rd through January 1st as a winter break. We were able to shave off a day there. And then we have, which is I think is very important, intentional breaks second semester. Those breaks you'll find on February 15th. That's a holiday for teachers and students. March 15th, which is a Monday, would be a long weekend break. This will help our students and our staff sort of catch our breath. And also in the event that we have a heavy flu season, which we potentially could have, we know that we need a weekend to sort of, again, get over that and nurse ourselves and get back to health. This calendar also provides for us a week for spring break, April 5th through the 9th. In this calendar, the first semester ends January 15th. That gives us 86 days in the first semester. And the last day for students in this calendar would be June the 9th. The last day for teachers would be June 15th. This calendar also provides us with leap days, which are 5 additional days in the teacher's calendar for in-person school days for students in grades 4 through 8. These days, as I mentioned to you before, are to use for us to do pre-assessments of students, for teachers to go through an orientation, for principals to provide professional learning. And our parents, we've been working really hard this week with our principals to develop communications so that they can communicate those leap days and the schedules that week for our parents. We've been working with transportation. We had a meeting today with Mr. Caldwell and his team, and with food service, because we'll be providing food during those leap days as well as providing transportation. I also mentioned to you that Lexington 1 this year, we're excited about this, we're an e-learning pilot district, which means that if we have inclement weather, we'll still have school in a virtual setting. The EOC recommends that e-learning pilot districts schedule e-learning that gives our schools, e-learning days that gives our schools time to facilitate or a simulated virtual learning day. So you'll notice in this calendar, those days are September the 18th, which is Friday, and September 25th, also a Friday, which is already built into that Friday e-learning day. We will collect data. I know Dr. Powers is a data guy. He's always asking us, how are you going to collect data to see how you did? We will collect data from not only our teachers, but our students as well about those 2 days and how that experience went, so we can make changes to implement with fidelity those e-learning days. You probably are going to ask me, so I'll proact to your questions. You always want to know, what are local districts around us doing? When are they going to start? So Lexington 2 is going to start the first day for students on August 31st. And like us, they're going to have a staggered student start. Lexington 3 is also going to start on August 31st. Lexington Richland 5 has not made a decision. They have made a decision to start September 8th. That could change. Lexington 4 is going to start on August the 17th. Richland 1 is going to start September the 8th. Don't know about Richland 2 yet. And I'm sure you saw today or yesterday, Charleston will start September the 8th. So we feel good about this calendar. Again, it's not perfect, but we feel like it's the calendar that would help our community this next school year. So I'm seeking your approval.
Thank you, Dr. Talley. Are there any questions regarding the calendar before we vote on it?
And I think you said, but the input that drove this calendar involved our teachers, our parent advisory committees, and others, or I know we probably, the timeline for this wasn't as long as our normal calendar.
What was the last thing you said, Dr. Garza?
The parent advisory committees, you know, student advisory committees or teacher advisory committees. I know normally we try to vet the calendar by those kind of three big stakeholders.
Well, we do have a calendar committee, and it is representative of all the stakeholders. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, board?
Yes, so did this go to the calendar committee for
Yes, ma'am.
feedback?
It did, and I have received feedback very favorably from the calendar committee.
Okay, so the calendar committee had a meeting?
We did not have a meeting. I did confer with 3 members of the calendar committee, and I did send the revised calendar, the changes to the calendar committee, and they have sent me back feedback, and it was very favorable.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for the changes to the 2020-2021 academic calendar. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Jade is opposed.
Okay, so anybody else besides Jada? So it's 6-1 in favor, and the calendar passes, and let's put the keys in the ignition, and we're taking off, so. Okay, Dr. Little. Let's go back now to 10.4, which is an operations update, and I'm going to turn it over to you to handle this part.
Thank you very much. I apologize. It happened so long ago that I'd forgotten that was a motion on the floor. Again, as I want to introduce Mr. Salters, last time the hours began to slip away from us, and so we decided to postpone our operations update. And we really wanted to make sure tonight that no matter what time it was, that we got to our operations update. So I'm going to turn it over to him as we walk through what we have on really coming up and the projects that we have on board. So you ready?
I am ready.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Little. It's a pleasure to be back in front of you doing an operations update. It seems like a long time ago that we've done this. And we've been very active in operations. If you just look to your left or to your right, in this room, you see these plexiglass dividers. Those types of things are going, around in our schools and our high-traffic areas. And we are also very much involved in personal protective equipment and other access. Is there another microphone on? Okay. Is it the one in your hand? Okay, we'll keep going. We've been very much involved in other personal protective equipment preparation for our students and staff as we come back. But we also have a $365 million bond referendum that's underway, and we have a number of projects associated with that that we're working through. We'll start at Centerville Elementary School. You'll recall this is scheduled to open this August, and you can see aerial photo there. Most of the parking lots are now paved and driveway accesses are paved. The off-site road improvements are being completed now. The striping and so forth is happening later this week. This is a closer shot of the front of the school there. So we're going to be doing some final asphalt coating here soon. You see we have roofs on the building, all the finishes. They've actually sodded the main areas here. I guess I'll point over here. Sodded these areas this week, so we're really starting to see it take shape. Yeah, right. Interior, this is the interior secured foyer. You can still see there's some painting work to do there. Cafeteria, and this is the stage area at the cafeteria. Again, this is a prototype of the Rocky Creek, Meadow Glen, Deerfield plan. Center common space there. Have windows in, and ceiling grid is in. Tile should be dropped here soon. This is a typical classroom, and you can see some of the casework is in, the cubbies are there, tiles down and on the floor, ceiling tiles in. And so we have a couple of wings that are really ready to be punched out and ready to go. We have an inspection there tomorrow, and then several other inspections coming up. So we're making some progress at Centerville. The new Pillion Middle School, an aerial photo here of this site. Most noticeable here is the fire access road has been completed around the building. It's just off of this picture, but the greenhouse for their program sits back over here. And it was installed this past week as well. This is the main entrance, so we're still waiting on some storefront to go in for the main entryway there, but ceiling's going in on that covered walkway. This is looking at the front entry as well. This is the main office here and the gymnasium in this area. And you'll recall from the Beechwood plan, there the auditorium was in the front, and this is flipped, so that's the gym. Looking back at the cafeteria and the media center areas, and that's the media center from the center courtyard area. And this is the little theater, so it's ready to be poured and seats put down there. And this is the center commons area, slightly different look than at Beechwood, with the way the stone comes up on this main staircase. And that's the media center you're looking at behind you there. Cafeteria, the kitchen equipment is in, serving lines are almost ready to go, and in really good shape here. The terrazzo has been rough ground and is ready to be polished. Here's a shot of the kitchen area. And this is a science classroom, so you can see we've got some furniture in there and some science fixtures in place. In really good shape at Pillion Middle School, ahead of schedule on that project. Scheduled to open in January. We may sneak them in a little early, and we'll work through that this fall. One more shot there, the center commons area, kind of looking back to the main entrance there. And then this is the media center inside that area, library. Pillion High School, you recall we did some track improvements and some improvements at the main stadium. This is on the back of the school. This is the weight room and wrestling room addition. Here you're looking at the outdoor space that'll be available, accessible off the weight room. These are some roll-up doors that are in the weight room. Here's a good shot of that weight room area. And this is the wrestling room. And floors have been ground there and ready for the mats to come in. And then this is the weight room. It's set up for the racks. The weight racks will be around the walls. This interior thing here will be a turf surface. You see many weight rooms and colleges now set up this way where you can do indoor workout and agility work on the turf and then move right over to the weight racks. And so that's that's the configuration there and at Gilbert.
We saw that when we went to visit the new Spartanburg High School, how many, I guess, in the fall. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of mind-boggling, time's lost. But they had that, and it was really neat because the kids were doing sprints, and then they were also doing the weightlifting, and I thought that was a clever use of space, so.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. That weight equipment will be here soon, and we're close to finalizing the work there at Pelion High School. Moving on to Gilbert Elementary School, which just in notes there is the current Gilbert Primary School. Just keep that in mind. Doing extensive work to the stacking room outside of the school. We've basically created a large driveway access loop outside of the campus there. All of the portable classrooms have been removed. Of course, when we opened Centerville, that allowed us to free up that space. This area here is actually going to be repurposed for a new playground to serve our older children that will be going back to that campus. And so over the next few weeks, that'll be transformed into a nice playground area. A lot of work going on in the cafeteria. It's hard to tell here, but we've got some new paint. All of the floor tiles being replaced, and we've got some other finishes in that space that are going to be changed out and freshened up. We have a new kitchen hood going into the cafeteria serving area. Moving on to Lexington Middle School replacement. This is a aerial photo of the entire site. And so you're looking, this would be old Cherokee down here, and you've got the main entrance down here. You've got the track will be in this area. This wetland will be preserved. The main school is actually in the back here. And we have the shapings of our 3 classroom wings. Again, this is the prototype plan of Beechwood and now the Pelion Middle School. So this is a closer shot of the front area. So ultimately, we'll have a driveway access here, a driveway access here that will curve around this track, and the track will be located kind of in this area here. We started some work on the bridge going across. There's actually 2 creek crossings here. This bridge is in place, our arch culvert, and then they've done it's hidden by the trees, but they're starting the foundations on this one. Underground storm detention pond here. There will ultimately be a parking lot over this area when it is finished. So a lot of work going on with the site there. Very pleased with the progress there because we've actually started doing some underground foundation work, piping and stuff going in. So we're doing really well there. Lexington Elementary School. It's kind of hard to tell what you're looking at with a couple of these shots, but you'll recall that we demoed the few buildings kind of up the hill, as they were called, I guess back in early June, late May. And we're also increasing stacking on this campus. And so there's just a lot of dirt being moved around right now. This is kind of was the main bus drive through here. The main school is down in this area, and you'll actually come in and loop back around up to where the old buildings were and circle back around to the front of the school. So it's a big loop that's being installed there to significantly increase the stacking on the campus of Lexington Elementary School. So here's another shot of some of that work that's going on there on that campus. That's in conjunction with the town of Lexington improvements that are going on with the relocation of Dreer Street and the one-way pair traffic.
When are they projected to be done with that, the town of Lexington? Is that still 18 months, or is that?
Yeah, so that work is started, and this is kind of, it actually touches 2 of their projects, the relocation project and then also the one-way pair project. So the one-way pairs will be extended 2 lanes. If you recall, when you turn right up here at Main Street, you have 2 lanes to travel in, and it goes down to 1 right about the time it gets to the school. Those 2 lanes will continue on through, And so they're doing that work as part of some of this work that we're doing. That'll kick in this fall. And then the relocation will also start around the same time. So it's going to be interesting to get access to Lexington Elementary for the next little while. So Lexington Technology Center, just briefly, we've got a number of things going on there, but we've got some bathroom renovations in some of our locker rooms. The Tech Center has had a number of renovations over the years, and these locker rooms just were never in the mix, and so we're pleased to be addressing those and creating some ADA accessible spaces. And these are between our experimental labs there, the welding lab and some of the other labs that they use. The students need spaces to change clothes and get into their gear to work in the classrooms. Oak Grove Elementary School, big renovation going on there. If you haven't been by Oak Grove, I encourage you to drive by there because it looks completely different. You'll see a 8-classroom addition coming off the end of the building here, and it's really coming out of the ground quickly. We're pleased with the progress there, really excited about that. Doing some other work also inside the building at Oak Grove. This is a cafeteria. We're doing some work on the ceiling there, refreshing some of the ceiling tile, and some other work at Oak Grove. Moving on to Red Bank Elementary, just quickly, we've got some ADA restroom upgrades that we're doing. Many of these older schools that were built in the early 80s, prior to the ADA compliance codes that we have now, needed to go back and be retrofitted, so we're doing that. We also have a new freezer cooler installed at Red Bank. The previous one was a small unit that was outside, and so we've been able to address that and put in a more adequate unit to handle the feeding at that school. A new hood and the kitchen area there for as you know, much larger for capacity of the cafeteria feeding that they do now at the school. White Knoll Elementary School, we've got a building pad ready. There's a kindergarten classroom addition off the front of White Knoll Elementary School. And so we've got a building pad ready there, getting ready to start digging footings for that building pad and addition. So we're excited about that work being kicked off as well. White Knoll High School, this is an aerial photo. Platte Springs Road is up here. We got multiple projects going on at White Knoll High School. We have a 32 classroom addition that's going here. And then we have our Performing Arts Center that's going over here. As you recall, this is the little theater that White Knoll High School was originally built with, a small theater. And we're going back and adding a true performing arts theater, 1,000-seat theater. And then the 32 classroom addition, you can kind of see the layout. It kind of comes out this way and then jogs back that way. So ready to start footings there on both sides. It's almost like 2 construction projects because you can't get from either side on the site. You have to go out on Platte Springs, and it's really a tricky thing there.
Mr. Salters, which was, I know we had the bus lot there. Which one was the bus lot that's being used now?
Well, so it's kind of cut off, but it's up here in this corner. And we have a small area of the center of study up here in this upper corner that is our current White Knoll bus transportation area. When that was designed, we designed that basically as classrooms first and then carved it up into office spaces so that in the future, when we were able to relocate it centrally, we could go back and open those spaces up and create classrooms. And so that'll be the plan when we get to a transportation facility. So just a closer shot of that front area, you can more clearly see the building pad is ready to go there. And then this is a look at the Performing Arts Center. The building is opened up now, so you're actually looking into the school. This was where the theater, the little theater used to be. And here's a closer shot of that opening there. And just the interior, you're actually on the stage at this point. And this area is going to be repurposed into a black box theater, and then some additional classroom, a dance classroom, and a flexible classroom for the school. And that area is where the seats used to be, and so that has been filled in. It'll be poured, and some walls erected to create the dance area and part of the black box and so forth. So really excited about what this is going to open up at White Knoll High School for the students there. White Knoll Middle School, new bleachers at White Knoll Middle School are going in. They had old wooden bleachers, and we had some maintenance challenges with those bleachers, and so those were well overdue for being replaced. So those are going in to the school right now. We have a new dish machine, new dishwashing area is being installed. You know, we think about it going under our counter at a school. It's a whole room, and so it's a big project to get that taken care of. So much needed upgrade there at White Knoll Middle School. All of the HVAC units at the school are being replaced over the next couple of years. And we did the second floor this summer, and they were under window units, and we were going back with these other units. And so there's some work done there that'll be patched in and finished out this summer in those areas to refresh those HVAC units. So a lot of work going on, a lot of projects across the district. We have several others in design that we're getting ready to kick off, we're excited about, but you can track all that progress on our building plan website. Thanks to our help and support from the communications office for doing that. Happy to answer any questions. Mm-hmm.
People want to take a tour, or they want bricks or whatever when the thing comes down. Who do they need to talk to about that, or is that even allowed?
So we will, at some point before that happens, which it's not going to happen anytime soon, we'll have some more conversations about that and work with the board and community on what that would look like. And there, you know, we'll work something out to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
We've had some feedback that folks want to go in, take pictures or look around and things like that. And, you know, we'll certainly work with them to do that. But we don't have any plans right this minute to, you know, go in and, you know, take a wrecking ball to anything. So we'll certainly give plenty of notice and coordinate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you.
That was great, Mr. Salters. Thank you, and thank your team. Woo, that is a lot of work going on. It's exciting, and we hope we can have kids in there. That's our goal, to get kids in those buildings. At this time, board, we're going to go to 11.0, which is items for board information. For information only, this report includes a monthly general fund budget transfer for June 2020, a monthly capital projects report for June 2020, and a monthly unauthorized procurements report for June 2020. And I believe our next meeting is August 4th. Is that correct? And I would like to, anyone that is listening, I would like to let you know that we have never turned off citizens' participation since the start of the pandemic. But if you want to speak to the board, speak to Dr. Little, you're more than welcome to come to a meeting. We always welcome people at our meetings, but if you don't feel comfortable, we welcome you contacting us by email, telephone. This is a lot of stuff going on, and we love to hear from our community, and we welcome the feedback. So email us, call us, whatever you need to do. Come see us in person. We're here. So just want to let everybody know about that, because I know I think there were some questions about, they thought we had turned off citizens' participation, and we have never turned that off, because we represent our community. So we need to hear from our community. At this time, it is 12.0, which is adjourned. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Green. All in favor, please stand up. And thank you, and thanks to everybody that presented tonight. Great presentations.